Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Let's Talk Resident Evil podcast. And this is an episode that you should be listening to on iTunes. If not, you should definitely download the iTunes link. You can also download it on Libsyn and then soon to be Google Play. So if you have any Android device, you can actually download that right to your phone or tablet or whatever the hell you got, even your computer. But this week, we're talking about something different, some recent news, but I am here with JJ and John.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on, Anthony.
Yeah, no problem.
What's going on, guys? Likewise, thank you.
Yeah, so we originally we did a Resident Evil 2 podcast about talking about the remake, but we had issues and the file was corrupted. So in place of that, until we prepped that a little bit better, we decided to do a show on the recent news. Literally was just announced 2 days ago at this point. And we even got some extra news on the back end that came out a little bit after. But we figured we could make an episode about this. And this is a great group to talk to. And we can kind of give our own opinions on stuff. We have some points here we can go off of as well. But, you know, unless you aren't unless you aren't someone who follows the Resident Evil news, as you know, Resident Evil: The Final Chapter was released earlier this year. And it was the final chapter of the franchise, of the Paul W.S. Anderson franchise. From 2002, well, really from the inception of the 97 Romero script all the way till now, it's finally over. That era is done. It is done. So now they said, hey, we're going to reboot this thing. So this got a lot of people talking. What are they going to do? Who are they going to cast? They're supposedly making 6 movies. We'll get into that too. So there's a lot of stuff circulating now. There's people that don't even believe that it should happen. They don't want it to happen. They don't want to even acknowledge its existence. But you can't really do that because it's right in our face no matter where we go. So, yeah, I mean, I want to ask you guys first. What was the initial thoughts going through your head? Because I feel like sometimes the first impression always kind of has an impact on how you will look at the, overall news and how you'll take it. I mean, we could start with you, JJ, first. I mean, what did you think when you first saw this news? What was the first thing you thought in your head? Was it positive? Was it negative? How did you go about that?
Honestly, I was pretty shocked, and it was more positive because I thought, if anything, because the last movie that came out, for as many people that didn't like it, it still made a lot of money.
It did.
A lot more overseas than here. I think it was actually, out of the franchise, one of the less grossing films here in America, but overseas it still banked. And the franchise as a whole made over $1 billion. So I was like, after I seen the numbers, after, Resident Evil: The Final Chapter came out, I was like, son of a bitch, they're going to make another one of these movies. I at this point, it's just, how much more can you do? I don't care. So to see that they're rebooting it, that's something I never thought would happen, because that's still making money. And, when you watch the movies, you can tell, they're just doing this for money. So to see that they're rebooting it, I was super excited. Didn't think it could happen. And the way I really look at it is, okay, so maybe the movies take the same approach, and they're, a lot of people don't like them again. Whatever, that's fine. I just won't watch them. Whatever, you don't have to watch them. But there's a chance now we could get the reboot that the series deserves. One that respects the games and kind of takes a more horror approach. So I'm excited.
All right, and that's another good point too. Is just seeing. Because you're going to question a lot of stuff, especially when you see the news for the first time. So, John, what did you think when you initially saw it? Because you texted me, you're like, did you hear the? Oh wait, you already heard the news, because you had an idea of what I was thinking. But what did you overall think when you first saw that night?
So it's a funny story, because the source that I received the news from was none other than a tweet by Game Informer. Which is a very strange source to hear something like this from, but I guess somebody was just excited over there, and they tweeted out that they were getting a reboot to the series, and I was like JJ, shocked. I was a little worried that they were going to bring on the same director, and I was worried that they were going to continue Alice's story, because that shouldn't ever happen again. Some of the things that I felt afterwards that night after I texted you and was really thinking about it was happy. I was happy because Reboot, from what most of my experiences have been in the gaming world and the movie world, is more often than not a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it is not such a good thing, but most of the time it has been a good experience. They're going to bring it up to speed, and they're going to take a story that was written so long ago and kind of modernize it. And I think if as long as they stay true to the games, it's a blessing in disguise. And a lot of fans are probably really upset by this announcement because all they can think about is Alice, 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 Alice.
Yeah, and the fan base that's circulated with the movies have also become fans of Alice, the character from the movies.
Exactly. There is a following of the Resident Evil movies who love it, and they know nothing about the games, so they're kind of skewed in this way that they feel like our characters from the games are the ones that don't belong, and they only know that story from the movies. And I feel so terrible for those people because that's not the story of Resident Evil. I was actually at my uncle's garage today, and we were talking about the reboot, which because he watched the first one. And he used to play Resident Evil back when it first came around. And he said he only watched the first one and never wanted to watch them again because they completely trashed the storyline.
So he understood right away where it was going.
He understood right away, and he didn't even watch any of them. As a diehard Resident Evil fan, I think I consider myself one. Even though they're terrible, I feel like there's some sort of responsibility of mine to still endure them. And
that's a good point.
I would be lying if I said that they weren't enjoyable, at least to some degree. The final chapter was the best comedy movie of my life.
Oh, it was fantastic. It was so...
It was such gold.
It was like trying to... I didn't even know what was going on. My head started hurting because of the quick cuts, and... when Wesker got stopped by the door, I was like, I'm in. No, actually, when I saw the predictive combat software, I was rolling. I was rolling on the floor. There was a girl next to me. She didn't know me. I was with my friends, and I was sitting on the end. And she, I could tell she was getting annoyed that I was laughing a lot. But I couldn't help it. I couldn't help myself. And I've seen every single one of these in theaters since the beginning. Even when I was like a fetus, seeing it in the fucking theater. It was more so of just I would just watch them and be like, I don't know what's going on, but I think this is Jill. Oh wait, no, that's not Jill. That's Alice. And then all the way to leading to the final chapter where it's just a yuck fest of whatever the fuck that was. And it was so I don't know. It was phenomenal. It was a great work of art.
Yes, it was.
I can agree with that because I think when I was watching it, I was the same way. I just had this smile fixed on my face, and my fiance looked over at me and she's like, "Are you really enjoying this?" I was like, "It's just so bad.
It's so bad.
It's just so stupid." But I guess I enjoy them for what they are. I completely separated from them from the games. They're their own thing. They're stupid, mindless action that use the Resident Evil name, and it's like I make an event of it to go to each one, and it's like I don't, the story is shit. The movie's just crazy nonsense, but I enjoy it for what it is. Just the cheese factor of it. So this last one is just like, oh god, it had so many issues, and there was no. The story was trash, and
they left characters they didn't even finish characters. You just see Claire, she's like, I'll be back, and then you never see Claire, and then the movie ends. It's like, what the fuck? Chris disappears. They never explain what happened to Chris. They never explain. She never asked about her brother. She never Jill's just gone. They literally just forgot. Not even they forgot. They intentionally just didn't care. They're like, okay, you know these characters. We're not talking about them, and that's it. We're not bringing them up. We're not, showing scenes or anything, a flashback or what happened, what might have happened. No. And these characters are just people that are cosplaying as the video game characters that we know and doing it badly. But it's still. But that brings us to our first point here, because these movies need to be rebooted for these specific reasons. Because it has an audience for people that like cheesy action movies, like us three. Like, we appreciate that for what it is, and like I said, we have our own nostalgia kind of fun factor going to see it. You know, it's a popcorn movie. That's what it is, through and through. But
well, before we get into the reboot and why it needs to happen, I just want to take a brief moment and kind of glance over the series, like the franchise as a whole, like the movie franchise in particular. There's a lot of things that, even though like we sit here and we laugh and we joke because we're Resident Evil fans, there is a appeal to this type of movie, and there is a large crowd out there. I mean, the fact it's like such a cheese fest and such a joke could be the highest grossing video game movie of all time.
Yeah.
Not to mention, the only thing that trumps it in the horror genre is Alien. In history.
Oh.
That...
No, I wouldn't.
No, they have made more money with these movies than every other horror movie franchise other than Alien, and that's a fact.
Oh, okay.
That is a statistic. And we sit here and we laugh at it, but there is a cult following of people out there who will just go watch these movies because that's what it is. It's mindless action.
Yeah, and I come from, like, you know, liking, you know, B movies and grindhouse movies and exploitation movies and blaxploitation movies. So like I'm into all that, like, underground shit that, like, was shown in shitty theaters in New York where there was, like, you know, rats running around and 5 people in the theater and nobody saw it. But then I would watch it and be like, this is the best movie ever made, you know? Like, but it's just like there's a factor to those movies, and then over time, you know, stuff like that gets a cult following, and I think that's a good point, because you can't really bring up the reboot without talking about all the other ones and what they've done, because, you know, they already did so much and people put it by the wayside because, you know, they're crap or they're not like the games and stuff, and it's fine. And it's true, like there's been several things that to hate about it, but you know, it does stand on its own for, you know, building its own lane. It has its own lane for video game movies and for audiences of video games in general, not just Resident Evil, but people that like that kind of fun action that you get out of a video game, but throw that into a movie. That's what it is. Whether or not it's mindless or not, or tries to follow some kind of story or any plot holes that may occur, like there were several, that they just don't care about, and that comes to show that they don't care. They just are. They're just having, you know, people died to make this movie, the last movie. People literally died, and the show must go on, and they got to make the money, and hundreds of thousands of dollars went into stunts and all this shit, and it, you know, was it worth it? I mean, I don't fucking know, but
that's
you know.
That's one of the points I was going to make, was that if you look at the movie franchise and you look at it from our point of view, which I believe I'm right in saying we all started with the games.
Yeah.
There is something to be said. Somebody going from the game to the movie is going to have a different experience than someone going to the movie for the first time. I actually had a customer who came to pick up the final chapter the other day who has never played a Resident Evil game, and we had a 20-minute conversation about why he should pick one up, and he ended up picking up Resident Evil 4 for the Xbox One.
Oh, nice.
Now,
good choice, yeah.
I said that for this generation, that was the best game to get into it.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be the one that...
He's going to have a blast.
Yeah, that's going to be the one that caters the most to him. But if we look at it from their perspective, people who are going to the movie for the first time and not knowing anything about it, would it be fair to say that the story is trash? I mean, yeah, I guess for, you know, all intents and purposes, it would be trash. Fair. But if you look at some other movie franchises, like, I don't know if you guys have had the pleasure of sitting through Assassin's Creed, or sitting through Prince of Persia, or sitting through Mortal Kombat, or sitting through Pixels.
Mortal Kombat's the best video game movie ever made.
So many people say that.
If you sit through that, though, and you've experienced that, and you've played the games before you watch the movies, it's a different experience than if you go there and you watch the movies first. And my whole thing about this is do I like the movies? No, I absolutely hate them. But for what they're worth, fairly judging them, if you take out the characters we love, the movies in retrospective really weren't that bad. The only problem with them is that from our point of view, taking Jill or making Jill just walk into the police station and shoot somebody who was acting weird, and then like having Claire show up, and then Claire's like just gone, and Chris is gone, and Barry dies smoking a blunt or some shit. You know, like it's like when you have these people and you bring them into the movie and they just disappear.
My God.
Oh my God, exactly. To us we almost take it like an insult.
Yeah.
I thought a lot of the stunts, a lot of the choreography, a lot of the events and the action that took place in the movies was well done. But the problem with us as fans is that we don't see it for that. We see it for, what the fuck did you do? Leon can't even speak English in this movie.
Yeah.
The most American can't speak English. I would hate to see who they would have casted if they ever got to Krauser.
It's like the movies itself, you know, the stories, they're more, the stories are as important as a mindless action movie, you know.
Yeah.
Like that's how I look at it. It's like if you watch like The Expendables, it's like you don't care.
Yeah,
about
that
the
movie was.
story.
Yeah.
I
Well,
hated that
it
movie.
makes it.
I love
sense
those
to
movies,
me.
but again, mindless action, and I appreciate that,
Yeah.
you know, for what it is. It knows
Well,
what it is.
those movies are more like a lot. Okay, so Expendables for me is not a bad movie. It's more like, if any of you are interested, well, I know you are, Anthony, but if you remember back in the Attitude Era of WWF, or WWE as it's called now, those kind of movies are like when you have The Rock, Stone Cold, Triple H, and like Chris Benoit or Eddie Guerrero back then, when you had all of them in the ring at the same time.
Yeah.
And
No,
you
that's a
didn't
good comparison. Yeah.
you didn't know who was going to lose because they're all fucking, pardon my language, but they're all fucking great. And you never really knew who was going to lose. I should say The Undertaker. That would have been perfect.
Oh,
like
yeah.
when you have like the Brothers of Destruction coming down the ring, it's such a pop moment for people. And like having the movie like The Expendables was such an important part of that movie, was the casting. And that's why that movie did so well. When you have something like Resident Evil, it's a similar effect for us. When you first see Jill, there is a pop in the Resident Evil fan base.
Yeah.
Because Jill is in the movie. Of course, we're let down right afterwards, but every single time after that, when we see, well, I don't know about you guys, but I thought the person they chose to play Chris was just not good. But everybody else in the movie,
no. Wentworth Miller
mostly,
was awful.
except for
I mean-
maybe Barry, when you first see them and you're introduced to them, no matter how bad that actor or actress was, no matter how fucked up the scene was, you felt like, okay, let's see what's going to happen. And then they let it down. And to your point earlier, Anthony, about Jill just disappearing, that actually was because when they shot these movies, they shot them so loosely that she was in a different movie, and because she had other obligations, they edited the script and wrote Jill out of the next movie, and then she just came back when she was done as the bad guy.
Yeah.
With the Umbrella mind control device. And they loosely just fuck.
Tied that in.
Like
Yeah, like,
Extinction,
just
she
brought
was
her back.
non-existent because literally at the end, you know, they're in the car and then the girl's in the back, and then they never said what happened to the girl in Apocalypse.
They
and
didn't.
then Jill's in the car and she's like, "Are you okay?" And then, you know, Alice has the umbrella, and then final chapter. And then, you know, the guy from Game of Thrones or whatever, you know, Dr. Isaacs, and then it's like there's clones, and I'm sorry, but Paul W.S. Anderson loves his fucking clones, okay? And,
Oh, man.
And talking about retconning everything that you knew about the series, that's what this one did. It followed the cliche, the final movie explains everything, and this isn't what it made it out to be, and then, you know... And then, you know, Alice was... look, if you really care that much about Final Chapter, then if you don't want to hear spoilers, then don't listen to this going forward. And then the whole thing with, you know, come back in like 15 minutes. You know, we're not talking about the old movies. But the like, you know, Alice was an old lady, and then they cloned her after her, and then she met the actual Alice, and it was like an old Mila Jovovich that just looked fucking creepy. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
I didn't know what was. It made my stomach. I was like, what's going on? It was like a confusion, just overwhelming.
They completely pulled it was all just a dream.
Yes.
The number one thing you'd never do. It's all just a dream. No,
Clones.
The number one things you never do. Clones. But the number one thing you never do. Actually, I can't say clones are bad because I'm a huge fan of Naruto. And that's all he uses to fight. But with that aside, the 3 things you never do. You never, ever, it was all just a dream. You never, ever, you go back in time and none of it ever happened. And you never, ever, the main character that you love, it doesn't actually exist. A.k.a. Roxas from Kingdom Hearts.
I don't know. Fight Club was an amazing movie, and Tyler Durden never existed.
Well, that's true. In certain circumstances, you can get away with that, but not 6 fucking movies.
David Fincher's so great.
Yeah.
Yeah, he made it work, and that script was just, it was based off the book.
There's always
great, but
timeless passes. Like, Back to the Future is a good movie, too.
But I get why the Resident Evil, like, when I see how much money Resident Evil's made, like, when somebody says, that's so stupid, how'd it make so much money? I get it. Look at the Fast and the Furious series. It's literally the same exact audience. And it's like, that movie made over the last one made over $1 billion.
It's the 5th highest grossing. Fast 7's like the 4th highest grossing movie of all time.
Yeah. Of course these Resident Evil movies are going to do good. They're exactly like that. They're just mindless action fun. And it's like,
I still can't get over the fact that dude died and they just continued making movies.
Oh yeah, they made a ton of money. Like that's they don't
changed
care.
The actor.
They see money side.
It was like his brother, right?
I don't fucking know.
No, in the newest one, it was a different guy. Are you talking about at the end of the last one?
I don't know. I
over his brother.
I saw the first one. That was it.
Yeah, so I mean that's like when you take the Fast and the Furious series though, and you look at the first one, you're like, hey, you got a solid movie here about street racing, and then you look at the newest one, you're like, what the hell is even going on anymore? Now they're super spies, like that's the same with Resident Evil. It's like the first one tried to loosely follow the Resident Evil 1 game.
Yeah.
Like, sure, it wasn't perfect, and sure, it had its flaws. They had a mansion, not like the Spencer mansion, but they tried. And then you get to the final chapter, and you're like, what the fuck happened in between? Like, what is even going on? And it's just that mindless fun that everybody goes and sees, and that's why it makes a lot.
Do you think that the final chapter? Okay, so the Resident Evil movie after Apocalypse, because that's like where it's still sort of in our universe of Resident Evil. After Apocalypse, when everything goes to shit and like the whole world is destroyed, that could be taken as a perspective of if the BSAA and relative corporations weren't there to fight it and how destroyed the world would become. Yeah. There's a charm to having everything so barren, and I love the one thing I did like about the final chapter is on her way back to Raccoon City. I love how she's just driving through the desert and then driving through the road to Raccoon City, and there is just thousands of zombies. I love that part, and then what's his dick comes to tie her to the back of the whatever the hell that thing was.
Dr. Isaac?
Yeah. His one of whatever clone he was.
Clone Dr. Isaac. Yeah. Clones is just
the tyrant,
such a bad idea.
The tyrant in Extinction was actually, him.
Dr. Isaac.
It was him, but they go back and they change things that weren't there. It's like the Halloween resurrection, thing, and or the Scream 3 kind of deal, with the whole third killer in the first one, or the Hip being her brother, the killer being Sydney's brother, for anyone who likes the Scream series, which I love. Scream 3, I mean, don't get me wrong, but again, but those movies are aware. They even mention about going back and showing you things. Trilogies are about going back and showing you something that wasn't there in the beginning. This is a whole fucking franchise, and then they still did that. Because Extinction, they knew it wasn't the last one. They definitely had a certain movie contract where they knew they were going to make as many as they did. I mean, they had the characters that, weren't like Carlos, why? Carlos.
Fuck that guy.
Carlos was a character that we've never seen ever since Resident Evil 3. He was with Jill, not Alice. And then him and Alice have a love connection. So it's like, I don't care. Like, I immediately stop paying attention when I see that because, again, first of all, it doesn't look like Carlos. It doesn't sound like Carlos.
I was going to say, I immediately stopped paying attention when I saw who they called Carlos.
Yeah, they're like, you know, and then they made Nikolai a good guy in Apocalypse, which is different, you know. I always thought he was Mikhail when I was a kid because I was like, oh, he's a good guy. He's not Nikolai. But there's no Russian guy, so we can't call him Mikhail or Mikhail, as Jill says. But the main thing with seeing how much some of these, you know, movies make, it's kind of a thing where I look at it as is the movie stand, as the audience kind of comes and goes. It's a generation gap too, because it's like people grow up and then, you know, they see these movies or their parents show them the movies or their friends show them the movies. And so it's been from 2002 to 2017. That's a pretty big fucking gap. You know, some of them being longer gaps between movies. Apocalypse and Extinction probably being the shortest ones. You know, I definitely would have loved to see, you know, George A. Romero's script, and whether or not people agree with that or not, I still think that it could have been awesome if we, you know, the man himself, who, if it wasn't for him, Resident Evil wouldn't even be made into a thing. And, you know, that would be cool if I got to see what would happen. All we have is a script online, but, you know, he involved the scientists. He talked about, you know, James Marcus. He talked about, you know, all the experiments and stuff and in the beginning of the movie. And there's different things like that are, you know, kind of around that script. And then obviously then we got Paul Anderson's script, which after seeing Mortal Kombat, I mean, I like Mortal Kombat a lot. I think that's a definitive game. If there's a video game movie that you should watch, it's Mortal Kombat. Because it is just amazing in every single way. And I say that not really sarcastically, but it's still pretty funny. If you like cheesy movies, just watch Mortal Kombat. Please, you won't regret it. Just don't watch Annihilation. But
the other thing too with Mortal Kombat is you have to keep in mind that movie came out in 1995, and that was before. I mean, knock on wood, because I don't really know. As you know, Anthony, I'm not really a live action kind of person. But that was like one of the first video game movies, other than maybe the Mario Bros. Movie.
Yeah.
Might have been like the late 80s or early. I'm dating myself.
Huge hit.
Mario Bros. Movie
with
gold.
Yeah, with live action, I'm just
So
so far back. But like, what made Mortal Kombat work was they went in not trying to make a serious movie.
Yeah.
They went in with a serious storyline and funny gimmicks.
They were self-aware.
Yes.
And they understood the story. And, like, that's why people like it so much, because they're like, hey, this is the story of the games. Let's not try to adapt it to a serious movie, but let's just make it as is. And that's why so many people liked it. And so many people look back on it and say, you know, like, oh, it's cheesy, but it's like, it's the games. Like, that's the story of the games.
It's fun.
You know, they adapted it well.
The games
it's fun.
are, in a sense, they are cheesy.
They're cheesy, yeah. And it, like I said, it was self-aware. But this is the good thing about this reboot news, Anthony, is now we have a chance to possibly get some of these things that we always wanted, like a script like George Romero's, you know, like, you know, now we have this chance again,
yes,
to get a well-made Resident Evil movie that, you know, stays true to the games. You know, but there's so many different games now, like, what's it going to stay true to? The classics, 4 through 6, you know, 7. I honestly, in my opinion, think it's going to, like, kind of take a 7 approach to things and sort of be, you know, different, but also Resident Evil. You get what I mean?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. That's a good point. I mean, that's what we'll get into is, you know, what do you think we can really do to make this have some kind of potential to get the ball rolling? Because, you know, we have to get people in right away. This first movie, it's going to have the audience from the games that are going to check it out, because now it's nothingness. It's coming out and nobody can judge it beforehand. Nobody can say anything. Everyone's going to go see it. The people from these movies that are fans are going to go see it. So you have two different fan bases.
Which is what I was going to... That's what I was gonna say too. Is in some way, shape, or form, as long as we get a truer Resident Evil for the fan base.
Do you think that's enough to build potential?
This is gonna open up the door for once again. Not that I say the movies are good, but one of the good things that will come from these shitty Resident Evil movies that we got is all of those people who watch the new ones. If they're more true to the story, it might increase the popularity of Resident Evil as a whole, as a gaming franchise, and maybe we could get some more things out quicker, like a remake of 3 or a remake of Code Veronica with some more budget. Because what this feels like to me, and this is just my opinion, but it feels like Capcom said to somebody, hey, those movies were kind of shit. We should probably do our fans some justice and actually put something out there that's like,
that has some potential,
has some potential to bring in more people. Because
that's a good point.
If they're sitting at the round table, if we are Capcom or, whoever is making the game at the time, whoever's in that room, if us three are there, those movies are not going to help sell our video games. They will by the name, but they're going to come to our video games and say, this isn't what I watched, and they're going to leave. If you can connect, like Vendetta will sell the Resident Evil, the game, because that is what goes on in like a Resident Evil 6-ish environment. But like, if you go and watch this movie and it's like revisiting the mystery and all that, and then like, could you imagine if they did a movie on like, what if they skip Resident Evil 1? And they just go to a unique character, like we were talking about earlier at work. What if they go? Yeah. What if instead of making Resident Evil 1, they just jump into an Outbreak setting where they have all these characters that aren't really our characters at first, and they could bring our characters in later on, but they're either this new cast or there are some characters. Maybe we can get Marvin.
That's literally like what I would want to see now. I don't know what they're going to do. Honestly, I have no idea. I can't even start to think, but I can tell you what I would like.
It's fun to speculate.
It is fun to speculate. Honestly, what I would like is a complete Outbreak style of movie in the form, like in the style of The Mist or like Dawn of the Dead in 2004. Like a group of random people brought together during these events, but it's not, tied in with any of the main characters, because we have the games for that. And if you want to tie it in, you can't bring, the characters from the games into the movies. Maybe you can make it work. It normally doesn't. But just new people during that timeline in a small, secluded environment, kind of showcasing, the horror that takes place, like, say, in Raccoon City. And they're just hunkered down somewhere and they have to kind of try to get out of the city. Something like that. I would really, really like to see that.
Or, even to your point, they could take a Kingdom Hearts approach to it, which I know is probably sounds very weird, but they could reintroduce us the characters we already know, like the way that Kingdom Hearts reintroduces the Final Fantasy characters we already know. But instead of giving them the backstory that they had in Final Fantasy, they kind of have their own new one. Like how you have your characters, like if you go to any wiki for anything, you'll have like, say you'll have Cloud. I'll use Cloud because he's a popular Final Fantasy character. It'll be like Cloud in Final Fantasy VII, Cloud in Dissidia, Cloud in Kingdom Hearts, Cloud in blah, blah, blah. While they're not all canon to him as one character, they are all him in some iteration. I mean, I guess technically the live-action Leon would be Leon in some iteration, but
I was gonna say
if they do that in a way to where like our characters kind of preserve their unique characteristics, but they don't tie it into the video games, because I might be the minority here, but I think if they tie it into the video games too much, that's going to create a problem, because it's either going to be too much like the video games, or it's going to be, this was wrong and you retconned it. Yep. So if they kind of give us our characters with maybe, think of it almost like a memory wipe. Like our characters have no previous memories of what happened in the gaming world, and they do a movie in the style of like The Mist, where all these characters come together. They could be our beloved characters, throw them in the outfits, get some good casting roles, and then just boom.
Wouldn't that be the problem that the actual movies that are out now have, though, where they just take the character and basically it's people cosplaying as the character when they, like that sounds like that could be a lot like the characters in the movies out right now.
Well, the difference between that and this would be the characters that are in this would actually have important roles instead of just being sidecasted by Alice.
Okay, that makes sense.
And I feel like if the characters we liked were actually in those movies a lot more, and Alice wasn't just the end all be all everything. I mean, literally, what does she do? She literally does Leon's laser dodging. She does everybody else's bull crap. Basically, Claire's explosion in Code Veronica, she mimics that with the lighter. Like, everything, she does everything that the main characters in the games do. If they spread that throughout a cast of likable characters, instead of having the focus all be on one character, I think it would be better for us. That's just what I think. Now, do I think, is that personally the way that I would like to see them go with the movies? Anthony knows very well, I want to see Spencer Mansion. I want to see Jill, Chris, Barry, Wesker, Rebecca, and that story. I just want to see that story. I think it would be insane being able to see how they position the cameras to replicate a fixed camera angle, and the way that they could get that to be done when they're walking through the halls and stuff like that. I would love to see that story with a little variation on like how Barry goes into betrayal and, how maybe, certain characters interact with each other. But because I have little faith that that's what they're going to do, I'm just opening up the door for other possibilities that I wouldn't mind seeing.
Okay. Yeah, like that would be awesome. Like it would be really cool to see that from a different perspective. But then it makes me think at the same time, like no matter how well you did the movie, it would only be cool, but we already have remastered, which in my eyes is perfect. It's the best way that story could be told. So then do you really want to take a movie and basically retell the same thing when it's already been done perfect? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, that's what I said earlier about the whole, it's either going to be too much like the games or it's going to be not too much like the games. So there's that part of me that wishes that would have just been the movie we got in the first place. And looking back, now that we have the live action movies that we have, I personally don't think they can do that. I think they're going to have to do something more like you said, like The Mist, where we're either introduced to our characters with memory wiped, or we're introduced with a whole new cast of characters, but they keep the world's rules the same.
I like that.
Yeah, I like that. I think that would be better for not only us as fans, because then we're not being dangled our favorite characters in front of our face just to get them either killed or thrown away, and it would do better for people in the movies transitioning to the games, because then they're not getting this painted picture of what this character's supposed to be like, and then maybe they're different in the game. It would just make a lot more sense. I personally like sad endings, and I think a perfect Outbreak-like game would be them accomplishing something, like stopping something or saving a bunch of people, but having all of the main characters end up dead.
I like that, because I completely agree, and that's why I kind of said The Mist. Everything goes well, they get what they want, and then boom, Raccoon City blows up.
Yep.
And it would be pretty shitty ending in a movie, but I like that, like where it's not always a happy ending, it's a more realistic approach.
And that would be a perfect way if they did Raccoon City. I personally want to see Resident Evil 2 or 3 or somewhere during those events. I think Spencer Mansion, while it would be really cool to see, I think there's just not enough there to make a full-fledged 2-hour movie or hour-and-a-half movie or whatever it might be. For us to get enough difference. Like I said, it all comes back to it's either too much like the game or not enough like the game. And I think they could pull that off in Raccoon City a lot better than they could in The Mansion. And with them dying, it would almost bring them in line with the movie could potentially be considered canon to the games if you wanted to. Now, I'm saying they're not I'm not going to say they are canon or they should be, but if you are a fan of the movie and you come to the game, you can say, oh, this is where Jose died or something like that. And it would make sense. because it would still be the same universe with the same logic, the same rules. I'd like to see all original Nemesis-like monsters in these movies. I wouldn't want to see Nemesis come back and chase somebody who's not Jill Valentine. I wouldn't want to see, like, Mr. X come back and chase somebody who's not Claire Redfield or Leon Scott Kennedy. I'd rather see them come up with their own unique type of monsters, but not unique like the chainsaw dude from Resident Evil 6 that chased them all over the place. Not like that crazy. But there was also more than one Mr. X, so I guess Mr. X could get away with that.
You could, yeah. He's all over the city.
But
what do you think,
I was gonna
Anthony?
say we kind of drowned Anthony out.
Yeah,
no, it's fine. No, I wanted to let you guys talk though for sure because it made me think about a lot of what I was gonna say. I think the overall idea of them bringing in a new thing of characters, that's something that could definitely, I think it could work either way. I feel like what it comes down to is who is going to be making the script? Who's going to be, is this going to be the same person who's directing it? Do they have a vision? Do they have a vision to make something different? Can they take something?
They announced the person who's writing it. It's the guy who wrote Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, that's true. 100% true.
Which,
that's why I thought you guys were talking about Mortal
that's
Kombat
what I
earlier.
thought too, but I guess Ant didn't know.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
He's just in shock right now.
No, I'm kidding.
It's Greg Russo or Greg Russo.
I mean, if his track record is pretty shit. So, I mean, no, I don't know. I mean, the main thing is, I think that even if you get a writer that can do something like that and actually plays the games, which Paul Anderson did not do. He says he did, but he didn't.
Yeah.
His
agent played the game and told him about him.
I played the game.
Yeah, like he did not play the game.
Bullshit.
The main thing that that I think that they should do is at least try to get even a director, because it makes sense too. I mean, like, the script can't be shit. If the script's shit from begin with, then you're just screwed. But here's the thing. The main idea is that we don't even know how long this is going to take. I mean, this guy can write it, and then it could be in development hell for 2 years, and then he gets kicked off the project, and someone else. This happens all the time in Hollywood. These movies sit in the vault forever, but because they're trying to capitalize on it, they're not going to wait too long, because they're trying to build the potential that Seven left behind. Which, can be positive or negative in whatever way you take it, as far as, what it can do for people to look at it and be like, well, now we got to do this, and now we have to do this, like in a certain business pattern, because that's what it is. It's business. They're going to do what makes them the most money. And if you get someone that brings in those characters that are just new, I don't know if it's going to bring in a lot of money. I feel like if you bring people that are like, oh, I know this character, I feel like they're going to try to do that. I do think they are going to mix in new characters as well. I don't doubt that. If anything, I feel like they should do something where you can have these characters in Raccoon City, and then all of a sudden, bam, they're like, oh my God, like, let's run in this building, and it's like, it's the police station. And then it's like, they run into Leon or Claire. So something cool like that, like little things like that like are slightly different. It's not like, it's not beat for beat like the games, but it's still mixing the old with the new, because you have to have the balance. If you're Hollywood, and if you could look at how Hollywood manages their stuff, they're looking at this like, okay, we gotta appeal. They have to appeal to people for the games. They tried to do that in a cheesy way in the other movies. Yes, we get that. But now that that's over and they kind of see what happened with that, now they're really trying to focus on what they think is going to make the most money. And I feel like if you just were to exile the old group altogether, or those characters you know and love, I feel like that could definitely tamper with that. Now, case in point, of course you do have your Resident Evil Paul Anderson fans who don't care, because they already saw a whole thing of characters that have no correlation to them whatsoever because they didn't play the games. Or even if they did, they just don't care, and they just like what they did with those characters in the films, up until this point. So I feel like it is going to be a give and take. It's going to be divided no matter what. No matter what you do, people are going to complain and people are going to bitch. But at the end of the day, I think that if they're going to do something, they have to just kind of find a nice balance of both. Give a little bit of this, a little bit of that, Have some ingredients in there. Give us some BOWs. The potential here would be to try to, come out, full swing with a first movie. Don't try to give people less. Try to just make something where you can build their trust, because you lost a lot of people's trust with the other movies. And regardless of it making millions and still having film, that was an audience that you could have made it, even bigger. And I feel like you lost them early on. And there's a lot of people that I know who listen to this show, who I've talked to in person, that do not like that because of the fact that it did lose their trust, and they didn't who's this Alice girl? Where's Alice? Why am I dealing with this? I don't care about Umbrella clones. This isn't the Umbrella that I know from the games doing all this shit. It didn't add up to a lot of people that could have been on board and could have potentially made the series a lot of money throughout. And that's probably why it did drop off in certain aspects. Obviously the records speak for themselves, but at the end of the day, I feel like there's a lot of things that can't be undone. So you have to try to come out new and try to at least have some kind of idea of a vision, because whoever your director is going to be talking to these actors, going to be having those experiences. Did he play the game? Can he actually reenact certain scenes that can be a nod to the series? All of this needs to be taken into consideration. There's a lot of things. They're treading on mighty thin ice, especially with fans of the games. So you got to either try to do that, or they're just thinking we got to rush this out, and it can be another Amazing Spider-Man situation where you rush it out because you have to go by a contract obligation, and then it gets canceled 2 movies in. Yeah, it's 6 films, but if this thing bombs hard and it sucks, this thing can get easily canceled. And that's something we have to consider, because it's something that's happened before. And I think that, they have to think smart about this. They can't just be like, well, we're making 6 films and we're going to release every single one on this recording date. It's like, no, sometimes that doesn't always happen like you would. It didn't happen for Sony Pictures. And I believe Sony owns this one as well, as far as the studio.
Constantine Films, I believe, or Constantine Films.
Constantine, you're
the
right.
Same people own this one that owned the previous one. So yes, there is for sure a possibility this one could end up just like the last one. And Anthony, what you were saying about losing fans, that it's completely, the movies have the same effect that 6 did. Yeah, it made a lot of money, but a lot of people were turned off by the series because of that. And
absolutely.
then look at 7. You have 7, which is a good game at, a lot of people say it's really good, but a lot of people also didn't play it because of they were burnt out, with 6.
And it didn't sell as much.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And so, so hopefully that doesn't happen. I guess, but when you said 6 films right now, word is that this is going to be 6 films, which, I mean, that's kind of scary. But
that is scary.
What do you guys think about that?
It depends. Okay, so the 6 film thing, I've been doing some thinking, and it depends on how they approach it. So if they approach it in the way that Star Wars is approaching their newer films, and they do it so that every single movie is a standalone story, and they don't do it so that one leads into the other like it does right now with the live action films, they can get away with 6 films easy. And if they ever stop, if they ever get canceled, that's fine, because they're all self-contained stories. Now, if they do a game from, or a game, Jesus Christ, if they do a movie from each era, they could get away with that. If they do a movie for the Mansion, a movie for Raccoon City, a movie for Spain, and a movie for Africa, they can all be self-contained stories where the overlaying picture of the movies is the same. They all take place in the same universe, but this is a different cast of characters. This is a different setting. This is a different plot line. And while the plot always harkens back to this has all happened because of the first one or because of this moment, they could even tell them out of order if they wanted to. They could go from the Mansion, or they could go from Africa, and then they could play the movies in reverse. So as the movies continue, it goes back to the other days, because there's always a big baddie. There's always a beginning, middle, and end to every single one of them stories. Now, I think that in my opinion, I think they would do it as, like I said the first time, the Mansion, then the city, then Spain, then so on and so forth. And they could do it. They could actionize the movie so that the mansion is a little bit more hyper than horror. They could actionize everything else about Raccoon City. I mean, Raccoon City, Jill's pushing zombies on the ground. So that's completely doable. I think an interesting dynamic to Anthony's point earlier about like running into Leon and Claire. It's sad, but the first thing that popped into my head was Operation Raccoon City when he said that. Because that's where they took the Resident Evil game and they tweaked the story a little bit. But that led to another thing. They could have a movie all about Hunk and his experience going into or escaping Raccoon City. That could be a movie by itself. Getting to the G-virus,
that's a good point. Yeah.
And getting out. So there's characters that they've left unexplored. Maybe Hunk is intentionally unexplored because he could be the star of these 6 films. I would be fine with that. I could care less.
So, like, are we all in favor of like them, because as far as making a point of the storylines that they can draw from to create this new Resident Evil universe, are we in favor of potentially pulling from the games that we know and love and also doing something new? Is that something that I feel like we can all agree on that we could see them potentially do to kind of make it, something nice for everybody, where you can draw, like you said, like do something like Hunk, but then that's still in the Raccoon City universe, or that's still in like that old style that we know and love. So do you think it'd be smart for them to kind of go through that but also adding new things, of course, to make it fresh?
I think that it would be interesting to see. There's so many possibilities, but like,
of course, there's a lot of storylines and story arcs that we could bring up,
As long as the story stays relatively intact in terms of the world's rules, I wouldn't even mind a story where Leon, Claire are running through the city and you get a double take to fit the movie, because if really you can beat Resident Evil 2 in less than an hour and a half. So that's almost perfect movie time right there if they do 1-for-1. Now, if they do it 1-for-1, that's going to be a lot quicker than actually playing the game, because there's movements and there's stair loading screens and stuff like that. You can beat that game in under 50 minutes if you skip doors. So if you think of it that way, and you think of it in a way to where, like, what would be an acceptable edit to that story? And I think an acceptable movie edit to that story would be if they kind of retold Raccoon City, but instead of maybe having Carlos, you could have Leon and Claire come across Jill escaping.
So you want this the same universe, but like the first thing Anthony said, the same universe, but kind of in a different direction, like
what if. I think a what if would be better for us fans, because the what if is giving us the characters we like I said, with the memory erase or the future erase in this point, would be, what if this happened? The video I just recorded today, that will be dropping probably, shameless plug, this week, is it has a lot to do with Chris and Barry's unexplored friendship, and what if Barry and Rebecca swap places in the first game? Because
that's interesting.
Yeah, because they unexplored that relationship completely, and it was enough for me to do a video on, a short video per se, but that is a what if that would be cool to speculate on and cooler to see, and I'd love to see it. It's kind of like addressing the elephant in the room, but I would like to see Zero as the first movie, because I'd like them to deliver, if they're going to stay true to the games, they should deliver it in chronological order, or chronological, whatever. That's a word for right now. Chronological. That's what I was trying to think of. I was thinking two things at once. Yeah, chronological order. They should release it in chronological order. So I'd like to see Zero first.
That would be amazing if they pulled off Zero. If they pulled off Zero, and imagine if they pulled off Zero and they made it tight as possible, and it was really good, and it's teasing that Spencer Mansion, and when people are pulled in to Zero, they're like, "That's it. This is it. This is what we want."
And that's the thing.
That would be an amazing first impression. And that's what it's going to be.
Okay, I know, but I had this dream, and it was a daydream, and I was sitting here thinking about this whole thing today when I got home, And the first movie retells Zero perfectly. And the movie ends right as Rebecca grabs the door to the mansion. And then the second movie is the mansion, but we don't see Rebecca, and we just see the Star Alpha team landing and getting in the house and everything like that. The second movie would reintroduce Rebecca because Chris and Jill would find her. And as they find her and it goes through the whole thing, the movie would end with it blowing up, them getting back to town, telling people. I want to see them telling and pleading with Chief Irons and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Hey, there's stuff going wrong.
Yes.
And them ignoring them.
Yeah.
And that movie would end with Birkin being attacked, and the final thing as the screen fades would be the rats eating, so that it leads right into Resident Evil 2. And then the third movie could be 2, and that's where I would change it up a little bit and have 2 and 3 kind of smashed together, because it would be easier to tell both of those stories.
It'd be the end of
once.
Raccoon City. Yeah,
exactly.
It'd be potentially the end of Raccoon City.
The end of Raccoon City. And then
that's a really good layout. I mean,
Leon leading off into the distance, there's 2 ways you can go. That's the end of Raccoon City. What's the next story? Do you tell Code Veronica? I think Code Veronica, cinematically, has the most potential to be a good movie. I personally think so. That
like I said, a lot of people on this channel or listening to the show love Code Veronica. I don't think they would disagree.
The crazy crossdresser, the airplane scene, I can already see it. Steve driving the airplane, Claire gets knocked out of the airplane, hanging on. Tyrant comes back over. She somehow smashes its knee with a knife or something. There's so many action-y scenes that you can put in Code Veronica. And then you always have the Chris and Wesker fist fight that Wesker completely owns because he's a noob. But, you just have all those moments in Code Veronica can make a great story. Good CGI can completely replicate Alexia's last form. I'd love to see the blood fire. That would be such an insane thing. I'd also like to see Chris and Wesker team up for a little longer than they did. And actually kind of have this moment where Alexia might grab Chris and Wesker just punches her because he's Wesker. And why not? And then Chris gets up and he's looks at Wesker and he's about to say thank you, and then Wesker kicks him.
That'd be amazing.
I think it would be absolutely fun to see that banter. And this kind of story writer and this director can bring that, because this director is all about fun.
Well, wait, do we have a director?
What director? There's no director now.
Yeah,
there's a producer.
Producer, that's what I meant. Producer.
Well, James Wan.
Yeah, he's the one that produced Saw, right?
And
he did The Conjuring,
Insidious, The Conjuring. Yeah. He has a really good record.
He has a great record, but the real question is how much input is the studio going to let him have? And because producer, big deal. That doesn't mean anything when you're dealing with several cooks in the kitchen until we find out. But like I said, I am a fan of James Wan. Which Same is here. Why I give him, credit.
Yeah. Wan is also the one that's directing Aquaman right now. And Aquaman does look to be a promising Marvel movie or DC movie. My bad. Whatever. I'm not a comic book channel, first of all. Second of all, they work together on what was the movie? I just read it earlier. It's a movie I haven't seen. Robotech? Have you guys seen that movie?
I have not seen that.
No.
Okay, I haven't seen that movie either. So we have no correlation of what those two are. The writer of the story and the producer, they work together on that movie. So those of you who have seen that movie, it's got an 8.6 out of 10. Oh, it's an animated series.
Interesting.
I wonder if that means it'll be animated.
Before we get more into the producer, can I give my thoughts on how I would like to see the movies handled? You said either kind of like a separate storyline that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Go for it.
I would have to say what you said, John. That sounds cool, but I would have to say I'm of a different mindset. I would go with the second thing Anthony said, where I would like it to remain in the same universe. But follow different stories from people that, were there when, like, say the outbreak occurred in Raccoon City. And like I said earlier, kind of compared to The Mist, where you have this group of people that come together and or you could even do like it from a detective's point of view, which I said in one of my videos, where you start to hear about the murders and he's researching it, and then you have the outbreak in Raccoon City, and then it all ends with finding out Chief Irons is corrupt, and then all of a sudden all hell breaks loose, and you have the outbreak in Raccoon. But I would just like this, because we have the games. The games are great, and like we already have the stories there. So I want to see it from a different perspective in the same world, where these characters, Claire, Chris, Jill, they all exist, but they're only mentioned or alluded to, but it's somebody else's story.
I would agree with that, and I'll be honest and open with the fact that whether it's that or it's what I kind of brought up, I would be happy with either of them, because both of them have a chance of doing it right.
Yeah.
And I think that both of them, the unique thing about this situation as a Resident Evil fan is both of those ideas bring excitement. When there's excitement in your body, the final chapter didn't bring me any excitement. When I heard that was announced as a movie, I was just like, oh. Well, I wonder how
it's over.
I wonder
maybe.
how funny it'll be. Yeah, it's over. Maybe.
And now we got confirmation on that, so here we are.
How do you feel about the confirmation that it's over?
Like I said, it's
let me
a little.
Let me pull up a dictionary of all the words that mean thrilled.
I feel like it's more so of a. It's more so of an excitement of what they could potentially do. That's why one of the first points we talked about was what can give it potential, is because that matters, because building the momentum from the first film is so important.
Absolutely galvanizing.
That sounds great. I gotta start using that. Yeah, that's galvanizing.
That's galvanizing. Absolutely galvanizing. I'm absolutely galvanized that the movies are over.
It's more so of like just, really trying to get the idea across of, look, we're going to try to be doing something new, and the people that they have, aren't terrible so far that we know. I mean, until we get some director announced. I mean, obviously the script's in development, so when that's done, I'm sure they're going to be sending it out, and people are going to be, in talks to work with these guys. And I think, as far as the characters and stuff and what they could potentially bring to that, I also think that it would be cool if they possibly gave some new BOWs or something.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Maybe some new like kind of T-virus formation or G-virus formation rather. And like play with that, like bring in the liquors, bring in the cool shit like that, but maybe bring in some new stuff too. I mean, it goes hand in hand with bringing in new stuff. Bring in some new BOWs. Like, if James Wan, he's also a fan of Japanese horror. Maybe he can have some input in some crazy Japanese looking fucking creatures, because Japanese horror is completely different.
Oh yeah,
that'd be cool if they kind of mix that in, like peanut butter and jelly, put that shit together, and you got American horror, which is what mostly Resident Evil is influenced off cheesy American horror, which is why it exists in the first place, and put it with the Japanese horror, and I don't know, just something different that we could see.
Then you basically have the first Resident Evil game, cheesy horror. You just described it.
Yeah, exactly.
I just had
perfect.
A nightmare daydream that Michael Bay is somehow going to end up being the director of this movie.
Oh God,
that would be awful.
I think people would beg for Romero back. I mean, not Romero, Anderson.
I'd be cool with Romero.
They should beg for fucking Romero. They should get on their knees and kiss his feet.
This is like him
who do you think
to do his thing
would be the shocking choice here?
Well, that would be one.
Well,
yeah, that would definitely be one.
Because he's because we're gonna bring up a point in a little bit too, talking about actions or horror, but he's all action. He's all slow-mo action, CGI, butt fucks. Like, that's what it is. It's like more so of like a like a clusterfuck of Transformers and everything else, and Mark Wahlberg, and I don't like that. But
Mark Wahlberg as Leon Kennedy. No, Mark Wahlberg as Chris Redfield. I can see it now.
Yeah.
Hey, he's buff enough; he can pull it off.
Exactly.
Knowing them, they'll just be like, I've never played the games, and they'll ask like their intern, and their intern will be like, well, Chris suffers from roid rage, and they'll be like, all right, call up The Rock.
All right.
Megan Fox as
Rock.
Jill Valentine.
Call up Dwayne Johnson or Vin Diesel. Get them on the phone.
Megan Fox as Jill Valentine. Put The Rock.
That's exactly what Michael Bay would do.
Oh, speaking of which, okay, not that this is always a touchy subject for a lot of people. I'm gonna clarify.
I'm triggered
right now. That it is my belief that none of us right here are racist, right?
I'm triggered.
We're all triggered. Yeah, but a big thing with me and movies is if they bring the characters we love into the movie, do not change their ethnicity.
In a different world, you could have different ethnicities for the characters.
You could, but I hate it. That's like if they brought in like a specific character. If in a different world, yeah, I guess it wouldn't be too bad. But if they're going to stay true to the games and they're going to bring that story forward, if they change them or they cast them, as you play Resident Evil, that is one of my biggest things about. I have one person in my mind in particular that I'm talking about, and that is Ada. And as you play the games, she gets more and more non-Asian.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I can see what you're saying. The characters are already made, and if you're staying true to the games, you would want to stay true to the characters.
Yeah, Walking Dead and shows like that, they've done it where the comic and the like some are completely different races, some are gay, some are, and like it's just subtle changes that the writer thinks it's necessary. So it really depends on who's taking the wheel as far as writing these characters. I don't mind it as much. I mean, I feel like they're not going to make our main heroes like that. Like, they changed the ethnicity of Carlos. Carlos was definitely not fucking Spanish, and Apocalypse, nobody even questioned it because nobody cared about the character, but it was something that they still did. But he wasn't even like a main character, where if they made like Jill like Asian or something, someone would say something in an Apocalypse. But I don't know, I feel like it wouldn't bother me too much. It's it is what it is. I just want them to at least get a good fucking story, and as long as we can get that, I mean, I'm in.
I completely agree.
That's just me. That's a personal gripe I have with a lot of things. And it works both ways. It doesn't have any particular like circumstance. Like if you make a character black who is white, it bothers me just as much as if you made an Asian character white or an Asian, because they do that shit too. When they bring things over from Japan, a lot of times in a lot of works, they'll draw them more white instead of Asian, and it bothers me because that's not what they are. And it doesn't bother me when they bring like a character like, say, a Spider-Man. There can be a black or a Chinese Spider-Man, because not every Spider-Man is Peter Parker. Spider-Man is an entity. Same thing with Batman. He's not only just Bruce Wayne. He's other people as well, and like, he's the Batman, but there's other things. Like Batman Beyond is still one of my favorite animated series of all time. And that's not the big guy. That's somebody else. And that doesn't bother me as much. It just bothers me when named characters are altered or changed. That bothers me a lot. And like I said, that's probably just me. But it's something that bothers me. Like, some things don't, and I guess it's kind of weird that some things don't and some things do. Like The Rock being Hercules in the movie.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, like, that didn't bug me at all. I didn't care. Like, I was like, yeah, that's believable. Like, because Hercules is this person who doesn't have a single look. And that doesn't bother me. No matter how many different Hercules there are, they're all entertaining to me. But when you have a drawn character who is a specific look and you change it, it bothers me. That's part of the reason why I hate Chris Redfield so much, because they can never pick a fucking look for him. and
that does bother
and they
me,
change
that they
him
can't
all
get a
the
look
time.
down.
And
That
Anthony
makes sense.
always says it's a different artist, blah blah blah, and I always fire back. Leon looks the same. Claire looks the same. Everybody else looks the same.
Well, they don't really look the same, though.
Claire has changed. And that pissed so many people off. And then Leon looks sort of the same. I mean,
kind
if you
of,
compare him
but
to 2, but barely, because I mean, if you take the graphics from 2 and then you take that to 4, I mean, you know, and then to 6, it's completely different. But if you take Leon from now to 7, he might look completely different.
Yeah, from 1 to 2, and from the originals to the 3D ones, like the more 3D ones, there was obviously look changes. But the general appearance is still the same. When you take Leon from Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 4, and Resident Evil 6, and you hold them up to somebody without a name, you can tell that's Leon. You can see that he is aging. When you take Chris from 1, from Remake, then Code Veronica, then 7, 6, 5, and you hold them all up without a name, some of them look like each other, some of them look like skinny people, some of them look like buff macho mans, and the one in 7 looks like he deflated. Like,
yeah, a little bit.
And it's not that his overall appearance bothers me with Chris. I love Chris as a character, no question. He's one of my favorites. He's probably like he is top 5 for me. And which, Anthony, I don't even think you knew that, but he is top 5 for me.
No, I thought you hated him.
I love Chris to death. I can't stand his look because of how often it changes. If they're going to stick with Chris, they need to pick a look and stick with him. When his facial structure, hairstyle, hair color, all of that swaps from game to game, it really has a disconnect for me from a storytelling point.
I can see that.
Leon
that makes
goes
sense.
from brown to blonde. It's true. That's fine. But we all know how pixels work. We all know how palettes work. There was no way on Leon's palette, there is no blonde color. So even if they would have made him blonde in Resident Evil 2, the darker tone of those older games would have made it look brown anyway. And then the newer games, he's blonde. But from Resident Evil 4 to 6, you could tell it's Leon. You could tell he aged. Even in Vendetta, Vendetta's look in the trailer is exactly the look I like for Chris.
Okay. So from like 5. No, that's
6.
It's 6.
He looks like 6.
Yeah, more 6. Yeah.
I like Chris.
6. He wasn't
6.
as buff. Like, he didn't look as ripped.
They toned him down.
They toned him down a bit. That
was my favorite.
Yeah, I think that was one of my favorites too. I hated his campaign. Well, not hated, but it wasn't great. But I did like the overall like look of him, because when I played the demo for the first time, the RE6 demo that came with Dragon's Dogma, I was like, I popped it in. I was like, I'm gonna play Chris's or whatever. And the first thing I noticed in the cutscene when he's drinking in the bar is I was like, oh, he's not like ripped, like he's you know, in shape,
more human,
but he's more they kind of like toned him down. They kind of either listened or they just kind of like, again, different artist, maybe they call him. But the thing is now is I think a different person voices him, which kind of pisses me off, because I did like the guy who played him in 5 and 6.
Same here.
The same guy who played Desmond in it's Assassin's Creed. And that was a great voice for him. I thought that fit his look and his face, everything perfectly, especially in 6. But now seeing his 6 model with the a different voice, now it's like an opposite effect. Now what John has with the looks, I have with the voice. It bothers me.
I agree. The looks of that, yes. But like, if you were to take my idea where it's the same universe with a different group of people, or like say you were to take a George Trevor approach or a Hunk approach, you don't have to worry about changing the look of these characters, because they still exist, but it's the story's not about them, you know what I mean?
Exactly. And that's why I agree with you. That's a good point. I think that I think my ideal situation, I was just tossing out scenarios earlier, but my ideal situation is don't give us the characters we already know.
Same here. I want new ones in the same universe.
I would go as far as to say, I know it's probably not going to be your opinion, but I'd go as far as to say, don't even give us references. Just give us Easter eggs. That's all. Like,
yeah, I agree, because
if a character had Chris's knife and just randomly, like, that's acceptable to me. That's an Easter egg. People aren't going to bitch about
Samurai Edge.
Exactly.
Yeah, Samurai Edge. Albert.
People aren't going to bitch
Taking
about
it from
that.
Kendo's gun shop.
I was going to say, there's our main character, Kendo.
Kendo, I would 110% be on board with the Kendo movie.
And at the end of the movie, he sits down.
He dies.
No, not even he dies. He sits down. Leon and Claire walks in, and he locks the door and says, "I don't have a clue what happened."
Yes, exactly.
Or
they walk out, and he's just like, "Oh man, what happened?" And he just goes and puts his hand on the glass, and you just see a zombie like break through the glass. That's the end of the movie.
By the time I realized something was wrong,
I love it. That's perfect. A side character you can make a movie out of.
The entire city was infested with zombies.
Oh my god!
I love Kendo.
They could cast Kendo as what's his name? Goodman.
John Goodman.
And they could cast Marvin as Will Smith.
Oh, yes. John Goodman is such a good actor.
John Goodman, yeah.
That's the thing. I could see John Goodman doing that.
He is such a good actor.
He could pull that off. He's so good.
And with Cloverfield, he's just a
crazy
dude who has a shelter.
10 Cloverfield,
so good.
10 Cloverfield Lane is an amazing film.
Is it really that
it.
good?
And that's
yes.
I've never seen it, but it's free right now.
That's kind of literally, now that you just bring up 10 Cloverfield Lane, that's honestly how I want Resident Evil to be.
Yeah, it's
in the
completely
same universe,
different. Yeah.
But it's secluded to a really good script in one place, and you get the monsters that the Resident Evil franchise has, but like not like thrown in your face like, "Oh, here's a liquor," but it's just like alluded to, like towards the end of the movie. Like, "Oh no, the Mr. X, he's here." Like, all this is here, but the whole movie takes place in one area, and it just has such a good script.
Yeah, like 10 like that's a great point, JJ, because 10 Cloverfield Lane is a movie that it's not Cloverfield. Like, it's not.
It's not.
It is not Cloverfield. If anything, it's so far from being Cloverfield that it's almost its own movie, almost. But there's things in there, and I'm not going to say what it is if you haven't seen it, John. But watch it, and I guarantee you'll enjoy it. The tension is real.
It's there. That's what Resident Evil has, tension.
The acting is phenomenal, and especially John Goodman, because John Goodman is in charge of this underground bunker.
Yeah.
And so he's rescuing these people. And then you just that's all I can say, really, because then you just find out more.
There you go.
From there,
he could be. He could be Barry too.
He could be.
He could.
Kendo.
He
could be Chief Irons.
Chief. Yeah.
He's just a good actor that fits many roles.
Yeah, he could fit any of those like little like heavy set guys, but like really he could like yell, and he can like get angry.
He can get angry, and it works.
And Chief Irons would be another great one.
But yeah, this is why I say The Mist, or I say 10 Cloverfield Lane. Like, that's I don't that's my style.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. I definitely could see that.
Prey on the love of the franchise, but don't make it so that it fucks with anything that we already have.
Yeah, it's not disrespecting what we already have. That still exists.
That's what I
think. Just another story from that universe.
That's what I think they could do. And I was actually going to use that word earlier too when we were talking about how like the introduction of all new characters could really help the movies. I feel like them not giving us our characters is the most they can do to respect us as fans.
Yes.
Because we don't.
That's a good point.
We don't want to see our characters in a shitty way again. We don't want to see our characters not be important. And if they get them wrong or they cast them wrong, like, people are going to always remember. You can't change it. Once the movie is made, at least now, you can't change it. It's done. And that character will forever be known as that casted character. So,
yeah,
to preserve that and respect us so we can respect them, they should just make it all new, a whole new cast.
Yeah, and no, like I said earlier, which I digress, I take back, is the mention of characters in the game. They don't have to do that. If the story's good, they don't have to even mention another character that we have in the game.
Easter eggs.
Unless it's done right. Yeah.
Like Dante's
Easter
Inferno. Not Dante's Inferno. Sorry.
The new Devil
May Cry. That would be great if one of the characters kind of like somehow ended up with sunglasses and looked like Wesker, and then threw it to the ground and said, "Who the hell would wear them?" Like that kind of humor and that kind of Easter egg would be great. Like how Dante, he has the wig and he's like, "Not in a million years," and he throws it off. By the way, the DMC is a terrible game in my opinion, but the other
haven't played it.
Compared
Never
to
was
the
a
other
fan.
Devil May
Thank
Cry.
God Resident Evil 4 turned into the Resident Evil 4 we got, not Devil May Cry. That's all I can say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is good, thank God. Because
you guys know
we
that
didn't want
Devil May Cry was originally gonna be Resident Evil 4, but it was so different that they made it their own game out of it, and then they made 3.5 and then 4.
It always baffles me. They made their own game out of it instead of making it Resident Evil 4. But they never bothered to make him not look like Leon. They're just like, dye his hair white, he's different.
They're running.
Obviously his outfit is different, but yeah.
They just dropped a bunch of acid, and they're just like, yeah, this is it. Like, I swear, man, sometimes these Japanese developers, they're fucking snorting coke or they're doing something.
But
because
sometimes they're geniuses.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes they're
number
geniuses, but like RE6, like that was like they probably had strippers on the cubicles, like coke lined up, like they didn't even know what the fuck was going on.
There's gonna be dinosaurs. Yeah.
Well,
there's gonna be 3 stories.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You know what? There was like straight up Illuminati when Simmons turned into a T-Rex. This is a true story. When Simmons turned into a T-Rex, when I first played Resident Evil 6, I turned to my friend and I said, "Are they telling me that they're remaking Dino Crisis?" And my friend looked at me and he said, "I hope so. That would be awesome." And I looked at him again and I said, "No, it wouldn't. Have you ever heard of Dino Crisis 3?
Oh,
no.
Man.
What if
he's lucky he has
What if Resident Evil the new movies had time travel?
Garbage, junk, get rid of it. The only thing that can pull off time travel is time splitters. Go away with that idea in Resident Evil. That's the next worst thing next to clones.
DeLorean, man.
It works in some movies, but no clones,
no movies,
no time travel in Resident Evil.
No movies have ever done time travel like justice for me, except for like I can think of some games that do time travel well. Like I really like Ocarina of Time. And the time.
Well, doesn't Dino Crisis do time travel well in the second one?
It does.
The first one and the second Dino Crisis both have time travel. Well, sort of. Yeah, they do. That's where the dinosaurs come from. And I think that the way that they did the time travel in Dino Crisis
spoiler
is spoiler alert. Regina is an outfit in Resident Evil 3, by the way. But anyway, I think the way they set up Dino Crisis 1 and 2 is great, and I think that is another series that needs to be rebooted. Make 1, make 2, write off 3, and make a new 3. Because 3 was trash.
Yeah, I agree.
And, you know,
it was god awful.
It was bad. Dino Crisis would make an interesting movie.
Oh yeah, it's perfect for a movie.
It would be better than Jurassic World, in my opinion. I liked Jurassic World. Not to get too off topic, but I really, because we're talking about movies, and this is one of the things that this could happen to this. I like Jurassic World because it did bring back the nostalgia for Jurassic Park.
Yeah, true.
But Jurassic World on its own as a standalone, there was one thing about that movie I absolutely loved, and everything else I kind of hated. And that was, I love Blue the Raptor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I love him. I love him so much because of, or her, whatever, but because of the end where he comes back, and I love the Raptor T-Rex versus the Spino T-Rex chameleon goldfish thing.
Yep.
But it reminded me of something that's going on with a lot of franchises right now, where Jurassic World was brought back for nostalgic purposes, and whenever you do that, you run into the you run into the problem of not living up to your predecessors.
It's not the same.
It's just not the same.
It's not the same.
And that's why a reboot is needed. Now,
well,
a reboot.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. But a reboot in Jurassic World didn't make sense because they didn't reboot it. It was still the same universe. And when you have movies that far apart, it kind of is what worried me about Star Wars when they first announced that Star Wars was getting a new film. I was worried. I was praying to God. Not that I'm a huge Star Wars fan, but I was praying that it would not be a continuation. I was hoping it would be like an extended universe movies like they're doing now, sort of.
Okay.
But it wasn't, and I would say that, back to the whole thing about you can't just pump movies out, like you can't promise 6 movies because they always get canceled. If anybody but Disney, I think that Star Wars movie would have been trash.
Yeah, I mean, I loved it.
Because Disney just has the money. Even if people hate Disney, and Disney does do some questionable things sometimes,
yeah.
But Disney just has the money to make sure the people who get it right are there.
I don't always necessarily think that money is what would solve things. I sometimes think that money is what's detrimental to certain movies. And I honestly feel like Resident Evil with a lower budget could be a better movie.
Definitely.
Yeah,
That's
I wish Hollywood thinks.
Yeah,
that's all it is. I mean,
I think it's both.
That's
actually.
Yeah,
I think it's both.
I think
movie and gaming both suffer from that.
No, they do. They do. I mean, it's a
too
greedy
big to
thing.
fail. Like it's not a good concept to go by. It's about kind of having the freedom of placing, as a director, placing your own artistic view on it or your own spin on it, and that could end horribly or that could end amazing.
There's too many scummy people and there's too many cooks in the kitchen now with gaming in Hollywood that it becomes. That's why now, if you want to make it
I agree.
Games, if you want to make it in games and movies, it's DIY. You have to do everything, funding. You have to do everything. Nobody gives a shit, but now you can. You have platforms. Some people could look at it like a disadvantage, but you have platforms. You have social media. You have the ability to, do certain Kickstarters or GoFundMes or anything like that. You can put. There's YouTube. There's things where people can find your content and literally contact you and be like, I want you to help me with this project, and it's like a dream project. And there's too many of nothing's the same anymore. Everything's different now. You try to do nostalgia things. Star Wars, it's not 1970 something anymore. It doesn't have the same. It's just
charm.
That era is over. It's continuing and it's breathing, but it's over. It's not. Yeah. It's one of those things where you lost people with the prequels. Maybe even if you didn't, you have people that have hope. And I did like 7. I even liked Rogue One even better. But I do think that there's certain things that don't work anymore, and people, you just gotta, this whole nostalgia, remaster this, remaster that, remake this, remake that. It's old. It's tired. This is the generation of remakes. I didn't spend $400 on a fucking console to play remasters. Hold
on. Except for Resident Evil 2. Okay, continue.
Well, except Resident Evil 2.
I was gonna say this about that whole thing. And earlier when I said money, I don't mean money is the answer, but I feel like with a company like Disney, who is for a primarily children company, they are so cutthroat with what gets published under their name.
And they're whores.
Off the top of your head, and don't go too deep. I'm not talking third party. I'm not talking like Princess of Avalor or anything like that. Name the last Disney movie that bombed.
Cars 2.
Okay.
I think it was.
Did it
that's
bomb?
Technically Pixar,
yeah, Cars,
isn't it?
Cars
It's
2
Pixar,
did
but isn't
bomb.
Pixar part of Disney?
They're a separate
they
studio,
are.
but they're not. I'm talking Disney original.
I'm sorry. You brought up trivia and then I just jumped right
well,
on top.
Cars 2. I was gonna say Cars 2 is a perfect example. I'll accept that.
Thanks.
But that was also 2011. That was 6 years ago.
Well,
Yeah,
I have an objection. One of the live action princess movies didn't do so well. I forget which one it was.
Cinderella?
That's very true.
Yeah, there is certain that didn't do well at all. Beauty and the Beast did amazing.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
That broke records, but they did have hiccups, even in their live actions.
Yes.
They had a little, they tried to find their ground, and it didn't take. They tried them, and some of them didn't take. Beauty and the Beast was more and you would think something like, oh, Cinderella, everyone knows Cinderella. Yeah, but, if it fucking sucks, it fucking sucks. Some people just don't go see it.
But
everybody
I think
heard
the
about
ratings
Beauty
were
and the Beast and
good.
saw it.
Yeah, Cinderella was 7 out of 10. But the point is, the point I was trying to make was that while Disney, they do have dark moments. Everybody has dark moments. I'm looking at you, the Wii U. But no matter what you have period of time. Cinderella and everything was a learning experience for Disney. And Beauty and the Beast, even though it might not be a perfect movie, they completely knocked it out of the park.
I thought they did a good job.
And when they move like that, that's very Disney. They're very cutthroat. So Cinderella didn't do good. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a Disney expert, but I guarantee you the people who worked on Cinderella didn't work on Beauty and the Beast.
They might have.
Some of them might have.
Maybe
but
some
I
with
mean,
like effects,
director,
maybe, or
producer,
like
stuff like that. Like
yeah.
that's not good. And Disney's animation first, and you guys know that I'm an animation person. I'm not really a live action person. But a lot of their animated movies that have come out in the last 3-4 years have been extraordinary. I mean, even the Frozen haters have to admit Frozen was a good movie.
It was
a solid movie. I absolutely loved Moana. I absolutely loved Finding Dory, which again is Pixar. No, that's Disney.
What was the one about feelings?
Up. Oh no, not Up. Inside Out. Yeah.
No. Was that a Disney movie?
Disney Pixar. Yeah.
That movie was fucking awesome.
And but the point, the point I'm bringing here is that when you have a company that's cutthroat that can do these promises with money, because they're so cutthroat, they have a higher success chance. The thing that scares me about the 6-movie promise with the Resident Evil, because I don't want to stay on Disney too long because we're getting off topic, but is that they're not a cutthroat company. They're not a Disney-like company. Disney,
they don't have that following. They don't have that built-in fan base necessarily. They don't. Because,
Disney,
you lost a lot of people.
Anybody else, I don't care what anybody says. Anthony, you can remember the customer we had that was talking about Star Trek?
Yes.
That's a perfect example. Any other company besides Disney this day and age, except for maybe a few, like Nintendo, and Marvel, some other cutthroat companies.
What is Disney?
Which is Disney, yeah. Which
can't get away from Disney.
No, but Marvel is, I consider that still its own company. Disney just owns it.
Oh no, it is. They got free reign.
Yeah, exactly. It's like technically. Never mind. We're not going to get into. I'll tell that.
I derailed you. Sorry.
After the podcast, we'll talk about Sega. But when you have a cutthroat company like that, you have the chance to be successful. When you're not a company that is so giant, and you don't have those mistake times to make,
especially someone who put out shit video game films.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have to think about.
And I'm talking like Screen Gems in general, like not even just that.
Is live action the way to go? And that leads us into our question. We have Vendetta, but
no, that's one of the points we have here.
What if, because these people worked on anime, they haven't announced anything yet, as far as I know.
No.
What if,
as of now,
instead of CG, we're just going to talk about this real quick. What if they do an animated original in the style of not like a Disney, but of like a Studio Ghibli?
Oh God! Now that would be perfect for what you were talking about earlier, redoing 1 and 2 and 3. Now with an animated film like Studio Ghibli, gold.
It would be great.
Fits that perfectly.
Or even do that and put elements that we talked about. Now, because now, of course, like you don't. No matter whether it's like that, which is a great point, or it's like the live action. Again, you have to. It's like the whole. Again, it's like the whole. Amazing Spider-Man syndrome with like retelling the origin story again or retelling things the same way, and people get tired. So the way to do that would be implement the same thing that we know and love, but also make things different, implement new characters, new BOWs, I think that would be an interesting take on it. I mean, I feel like, now because of the demand that they probably want to get after, because money talks, the money they look at, they're like, well, we made this amount of much money, and, we want to at least try to get this out of the, hit this out of the ballpark here. And that's why it's fascinating to see what they could do. I mean, could they get away with doing something animated? I think so. But I also think there's people that want to see, they want to see that Spencer Mansion or that different look in a live action. It's exciting. I mean, we think about this. When we see this, we're going to be fucking excited. We don't know what to expect. If it's disappointing, it's disappointing. But I can't wait to, if this comes out next year or 2019, I mean, it's going to be it's going to be an event. I'll make an event out of it. I mean, and this is coming from, diehard Resident Evil fans such as you guys as well. We're going to be excited. We're going to get tickets probably in advance, or we're going to do whatever, because it's going to be a big thing, especially if a trailer drops and everybody's like, holy shit. And it builds hype, and you have social media, you have YouTube, you have the internet. Because when Resident Evil first came out, 2002, the internet was very still hit and miss. For a lot of people, it wasn't in everybody's homes. Now everybody can pull up their phone and be like, "Oh, what's going on in Resident Evil? Oh, a news reboot of it's coming out. Okay, so everything's in front of you, and so I think the hype can be built, whether it's animated or live action. I feel like it can really be tunneled the same way. All that information can be fed to us in a way where they could make it somewhat exciting again, I hope. But, again, we don't know. We're going to have to wait and see for that. But I would love an animated film, though.
That would be cool. But we have, honestly, I think it would be great, but I would much prefer a live action, just for the fact that we have the CGI films, and in my opinion, they're great, and they fit in with the game. So I'm excited, there's so many ways this could be good, and there's so many ways this could be bad.
Oh, yeah.
One thing that really worries me, back to the 6 film thing, is the whole, I've said this over and over, that I want more of a smaller air, like a Mist or a 10 Cloverfield Lane. But when you say 6 films, you immediately, it sets red flags for me, because it's like, well, you can't do that with 6 films. And, it worries me. It does.
Yeah, I mean, John mentioned earlier about the whole, just trying to end them and that's it, and maybe something new. I feel like they could make that work if they went with the idea of doing something completely different, and then they have endpoints of each story, at one point. So, you could potentially make that story last that long if you made it in a sense where there's endpoints and then there's startup points, and then maybe you don't see these characters for this specific movie, and then they come back again.
True.
So I don't know. I mean, it's a way, but it does. I think it scares all of us. I think it scares everyone that's listening, because you look at it and what do you immediately think when you see 6 films? You think about what you just fucking saw. 6 films.
Exactly.
Well,
that's
to be fair too. Don't forget, I'm confident. Okay, bold prediction here. I'm confident. No matter what we get, it will be better than what we have. And
that's why I said we can't lose.
And you can't
here.
lose. And if we're let down,
I agree.
let's say we're let down, okay? We're almost at the point where it's not surprising, and it won't hurt anything that's already been established. It's not going to hurt it anymore. But the potential that this could be a pop sensation is so much greater now than ever, because...
And it's exciting.
I say it all the time. I've been saying it all the time. It is such a good time to be a Resident Evil fan right now, because Resident Evil 7, no matter how you feel about the game, has reignited the world with Resident Evil.
It has.
And now is the perfect time for them to announce this reboot. Now is the perfect time for them to push the name Biohazard. What if it's not called Resident Evil?
Remakes coming out and shit.
What if they call it?
Now's a perfect time for the remake of Resident Evil.
Of course,
2.
it's always a perfect time
At
for
E3.
Resident Evil 2, because Resident Evil 2's JJ. I'm sure it's your favorite. I heard. It's also my favorite, and I have very, very strong, very deep connections with that game that drive more than just on screen. I have a lot to do with that game, and it is my favorite game of all time. There's only one game that has given me the same feeling as when I played Resident Evil 2. And it was actually yesterday when I started up Breath of the Wild.
Ooh, you got to give that some time. Let that sink in and then tell me.
Oh, I will. Don't worry.
10 years.
Yeah,
you got to give that
some
time.
Resident Evil 2 means so much to me, and there's a part of me that really wants to see Raccoon City because I really want to see Claire and Leon.
Biohazard 2.
Well, you mentioned it being not even being called Resident Evil.
Yeah, I was going to say,
it could be called Biohazard.
Now is the perfect time for it to be called Biohazard.
I'm cool with that.
Because it wasn't called Biohazard because of the fucking band, but that's over with. Now you can just fucking call it Biohazard.
Screw it.
But
Makes
I know
more
people
sense.
know, Hollywood, again, oh no, people know Resident Evil. They know Resident Evil. The casuals aren't going to know what Biohazard is. What's Biohazard? And if they would have to brand it as like Resident Evil Biohazard, like 7, or do something like that. They have to make it Resident Evil because it's Resident Evil. Like Biohazard, I fucking love Biohazard. I love that name. It's hard.
Same here.
But again, people know Resident Evil and the way Hollywood works. Unfortunately, I would love to see it like that, but they're gonna just go with Resident Evil, and they're gonna have to call it something where people know. Of course, the fans would know. But Biohazard can be anything. And people are like, Biohazard, what do you want to see? Biohazard or, Fast and Furious 16, fucking Saw 20, or Biohazard. Man. Oh, I don't really know a Biohazard. Let me go with Saw or Fast and Furious. Like, that's, like, they're thinking of that casual market, too. But then people are like, oh, Resident Evil, Fast and Furious 20, Saw 36. And they're like, oh, Resident Evil. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, Resident Evil. Yeah, I remember that game. Yeah, I remember that. And then all of a sudden, they go see Resident Evil.
It was
called Biohazard. Yeah. It could get lost in the sea of things, in my opinion.
I just remembered, and it kind of really upset me. But just a moment of silence, because I just remembered that Anderson is moving on to direct Monster Hunter. And
really,
Monster Hunter is such a big game in Japan, and it's one of Capcom's IPs. Yeah. And the fact that they're giving him the reins to Monster Hunter actually worries me.
That he could come to Resident Evil,
because they haven't announced a director yet.
Yeah.
Okay, let's play devil advocate here. He won't be in Resident Evil because he's going to be producing Monster Hunter. So that's a good thing.
What if they get the director of Underworld?
I was just going to say,
same studio.
I was going to say, but let's just say somehow, I swear to fucking God, if fucking Mila is the main character in Monster Hunter. I swear to God.
Jesus
but let's
Christ.
just say,
Mila Jovovich, you want a job? Start fucking the director. All right, we're good.
In some weird universe, okay, we are given a reboot of the movies, and we have our characters. What if Mila was casted as Jill?
Oh God, why? Don't even say things like
that.
Wow. Would you even give it a chance?
I still would give it a chance, yeah, because I dealt with her
here.
fucking 6 times already, so I might as well just see her again. I think she looked the best in Extinction.
I think she...
And that's where she thinks she looked the worst when I was listening
really?
to... behind the scenes, she said she hated her character and that she doesn't know what was going on with her hair.
I
don't know. That's what she said.
See, I think it's funny because...
I thought she looked hot.
Because...
Yeah, I don't know.
It's... Okay, so this is kind of probably another minority thing here, but... She's not a bad actress.
Yeah.
It's just... She gets a lot of hate from us because she took away what made Resident Evil Resident Evil.
Yeah, it's not necessarily her fault.
Project
It's the
Alice.
direction Yeah, it was the character she was given and the direction they took. It's not her fault.
Anybody
as an actress,
could have been put in that position. There are people who hate Will Smith because of his role in Suicide Squad now.
Oh, by the way, you got to get Will Smith to play Marvin.
Of course, Marvin has to be Will Smith.
Yeah, that's what
it has to be
what
Will
John
Smith.
said
That's a joke that's been going on since the late '90s, and if you don't do that, I'm gonna stop watching
He's
movies.
literally
You have to.
You
can't introduce Marvin.
And you know
Will
what
Smith.
would be perfect too?
Yeah.
You know what would be the perfect Easter egg? Because when was wait, I have the perfect Easter egg. When was Raccoon City? 1998, right?
Yes.
Wait a second. When did it air? Oh, it's gonna be good.
Yeah,
It did start. Exactly. I was gonna say it should open with Marvin at the desk with his with a TV on, with the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air playing on the background, and it should be Will Smith.
My left got turned upside down.
Because
that show is
pretty
amazing, by the way.
That is
It
pretty
started-
crazy.
Please watch that show.
Yeah,
if
definitely.
nobody's watched it.
It started in 1990 and ended in 1996, which means it's in Raccoon City. Because Raccoon City was 1998.
Oh,
shit.
So Marvin knew that he was the Fresh Prince of Raccoon City.
Oh, he knew.
Ooh.
He knew.
Yeah, he did.
And he knew he was going to try to tell Leon.
They just put Carlton as
Hey, they could do that too.
they cast Carlton as the liquor.
Oh my god.
Oh god, this is getting crazy.
Dun, 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 dun.
Anyway,
Why don't you make a video like that for YouTube? That sounds perfect.
it's
Get like an animated movie.
of Marvin.
William Shatner
Yeah.
playing
Oh, gosh.
in the background.
Oh man.
But yeah, so I guess like I said earlier, the one good thing we do have going, like I said, the 6 films worries me, but the producer is good news. James Wan. That's good.
That's
that's confirmed,
good.
and that's
makes me
good.
smile a little bit.
Yep. That's what makes me think they're going to take a more horror approach. Now, like you said, he doesn't have much say in it, but he is overseeing it. So just by choosing him makes me think they're going to go with the more horror approach.
Well-
but then when you say the script writer is a Mortal Kombat guy, then I'm just like, shit.
Well, that
Like,
brings up to one of our last things that we have here is like, can this film get away with being horror, or will it be just kind of like the action thing, or will they try to have a blend? I mean, the audience, we got to think about this. We talked about the audience that this is going to be catering to, or possibly catering to. I want to hear I'll go last. I want to hear what you guys think. What should it do? We've seen traditional horror movies, we've seen cheesy horror movies, we've seen action movies, we've seen cheesy action movies, we've seen good action movies. And I know, John, you don't like a lot of live action stuffs, but I want to hear what both of you have to say, whoever wants to go first, on what do you think they should really do to put the tail end of this reboot in making the overall tone of this. This script's being written, so someone has some kind of fucking idea of what they want to put on the table, and whether or not that's been going to be characters, new characters, old characters, not. What really matters is, what is this film trying to achieve? The action, crazy Marilyn Manson music was cool, and I still like it, and you probably heard it in the intro of this podcast, because that Marilyn Manson theme is fucking kick-ass. Believe
it is
me.
awesome.
But the thing is now I think it's time to turn the table, and I'll go last, of course, but I want to know what you guys would like to see them do. Would you like the mix of both? Do you think they could only get away with doing both to kind of cater to the old audiences of the films and the fans of the games, or even new audience members who want to see a good horror film or maybe want to see a good action film? Whoever wants to go first, but I want to hear what you guys have to think about that.
Well,
John,
yeah, I was
going
going to say, before we do that, I just have one question for you. When you said Mortal Kombat was the best video game movie, were you being serious?
Yes.
Okay.
A lot of people say
Now,
that.
why does it scare me that Paul Anderson directed that?
He did.
How did he go from that to this?
I think
It works for that, but it doesn't work for
Yeah, I feel like it worked because, like, think of it this way. I mean, a tournament fighting game and in Earthrealm and all this, you got Goro, you got Shao
exactly.
Kahn. It's already funny.
That's what I wanted.
It's silly.
I wanted that to be brought here. I wanted you to say that. Because I feel like that is exactly the way that I feel. And I didn't want to say that and then just have you guys agree. I wanted to see if you would say that first.
Yeah,
He's a director
it's like,
that works in a certain type of movie.
Exactly, especially like Alien vs Predator, where it's like it worked for that. Now it's not the best movie ever made, but it's still like it's different material and different things that he like thinks that could work. Like Mortal Kombat, when that movie came out, think of it this way. I mean, it was blowing up. I mean, parents, the outrage and creating the ESRB, it was so popular and at its peak, and they just capitalized on that. But they also did a decent job, and it's like literally every other cut is someone jumping in the air. It's fantastic. It's amazing. It's not like
when Sub-Zero freezes
Annihilation. Yeah, when Sub-Zero. Yeah, it's not like Annihilation though.
No.
Too bad you will die. Like it's not that bad, because that wasn't Paul Anderson. That was someone else, and that was rushed.
Everybody loves the nut punch.
Oh, the nut punch was amazing.
I literally one of my first YouTube videos I ever made is on a channel that no longer exists, where I edited together that nut punch with Falcon Punch.
That's amazing. Falcon
Punch! He's just screaming. But yeah, it's gonna be one of those things. I could talk about whether it'll be horror or forced action, like most of the video games. So,
because that's important to a lot of people. I mean, think of it this way. Think of how important it was for them to get back to horror for the games. That was an important thing. And a lot of people were tired of the countless action. People would compare it to the movies. So, and when I say people, I mean fans. So when people would compare how the route of like 6, for example, would compare to a movie, and people were just not having it, now that's being considered. So that with that being, in mind, and I know you know this already, what do you think would be the best approach?
So actually I'm very torn with this.
Okay.
Because
now why is that?
Now, so I feel like there is only 2 ways this will work. If they are retelling 0 or 1, particularly, I'm going to do 2 different discussions here. The first one's going to be if they stay true to the games. The second one's going to be if they introduce us with all new characters. So if they stay true to the games, the only 2 games that will work in a traditional horror setting are 0 and 1. I believe once you get to the city, you have to turn it into an action movie, or it's just not going to feel like the pacing is right.
So you feel like as the series would move along, they would change the pacing, kind of like how the games
just like
did.
the games. Now, with that being
That's
said,
a good point.
If they have all new characters, I think it's better just to go action. I think there should be mystery and horror in terms of what is being depicted to the characters.
Or some kind of detective
or
aspect.
Some type
of
detective.
They're figuring out like key points and
the number one thing I miss about my Resident Evil is I miss caring about what comes next. And in the newer Resident Evils, there is a lot of that is just yanked out from underneath of you. And it really all started with 4. And once 4 hit there, it was all action. It was not my Resident Evil anymore. And I say mine, obviously, I mean that endearingly.
Hashtag not my Resident Evil.
Hashtag what the hell, I am only playing you because Leon's in it. But it's not the same. And I feel like if they're going to do the movies, they have to keep the same theme throughout all 6. So if they do that, let's say 6 do come out, I think it's better if they go action over horror, but there is a potential that they could captivate and capture a mix of the 2 very well in the chasing. So there is a certain aspect of action and horror that can be blended together if you put your characters in like being hunted. So like a Nemesis or a Mr. X or a Wesker even, who is hunting you. They're coming for you. It can still be action with the zombies and the Cerberus and the Lickers, but then there's no action to be really had with that entity that's bigger than you and badder than you. That's the horror. That's the I need to fucking get away. That's the why the hell did Jill just survive a rocket launcher to the face? That shouldn't be there. Like, that is a I need to run now. And if they're going to stay true to the games, I feel like the horror aspect will only work in 0 and 1. Once you get past that, it's not going to work, because in a city, there's only so many scary cuts you can do, walking down a scary alleyway or walking in through a police station. I mean, let's be honest, if they're building sets for a movie, they're most likely going to be mostly outside, because there is no fucking... How are they going to build a police station that big?
Yeah, no, they can't rebuild the RPD.
That
That's
RPD
insane.
slash
I would love
City
if
Hall,
they did and let people visit it.
It would just be set pieces.
It would be set
Yeah,
pieces.
it'd be set pieces.
But I'm thinking from an outsider's point of view. Like, there's a lot to do in that building that is going to be horror. But if they focus too much on the horror and going from room to room like that, and opening, think of it like the door loading screens. That's going to eat up so much screen time of them going in and out of different rooms. And if they just cut it out and cut in and they're in a different room, it's going to feel disjointed. And it's going to already feel actiony because they're from here, from here, from here. It's like if they walk into the building, they look around for a little bit, and then it cuts to them talking to Marvin, and then it cuts to them in the club room. Like, it's going to be... or the Stars room, rather, because the club room's later on in the game. But it's going to be very disjointed. And then if they're going to follow the game, how are they going to fit Ada in? Because Ada doesn't come until about the halfway point. And then, like, are we going to be connected to this character we met halfway through? And how are they going to depict Leon falling in love with her? And, like, all this other stuff. Because it's very cheesy in the game. Like, it's not believable at all. But Sherry is another character they have to worry about. So there's a lot of different things. And that's why I think really the answer is they should stick to more action, I think, than horror. I think that the action doesn't have to be the levels of the ones we have now. I think they could get away with, like... Honestly, it sounds kind of weird, but I've only seen a few of them, but they could get away with action the way that Walking Dead gets away with action, to where it's not so much over the top as it is more realistic and running. The way that the way that the characters survive the incident of Raccoon City and the incident of the mansion is they didn't turn and fight every single thing. They fucking ran.
Yeah.
And that chasing...
They had no idea what was going on.
Exactly. That being chased, that chasing, that pursuit, that is the horror that they can bring to the table through...
Imagine a Nemesis pursuit done right.
Through
that'd
action.
Be so good. That would be so good.
And no rocket launcher being shot through the gutter thing.
But the thing is, if it wasn't following, like, a Stars member, the Nemesis is really no big deal. So then you get a Mr. X.
Which is what I said, yeah.
And I think it'd be
X.
awesome to see.
And Mr. X makes sense because there's more than one. And so with my final verdict on it is they should be more action with the horror aspect of being chased. And it should be a new cast of characters in Raccoon City for episode 1 or movie 1. Now my problem with that is there's only so much chasing. There's only so much, what's the word I'm looking for? There's only so much chasing, so much pursuing that you can do across 6 films before it gets boring. So my gut feeling is they're going to retell the story of the video games. And that's all I have to say. I feel like they're going to do that because they can stretch that over 6 movies. If they do it in the terms of having all new characters and they do it in the terms of them having no connection to our old guys, and they do it to where they're actiony but not really horror, I feel like that's going to be the way it goes. And I guess the only other thing that I want to throw in is if they do it to where they make a movie in the setting of like a Resident Evil 7, I will flat out tell you I will be disappointed. If they start at 7 and that era, the mold and stuff, and they make a movie from that, I'll be disappointed. There's a really crappy sci-fi movie called Spines. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
No, I haven't.
I have not.
Watch it, and you'll see what I mean when I say black goopy monsters are not fun.
They never were fun in Resident Evil. I never enjoyed them. They were okay in 7, but they felt very
uninspired.
Uninspired and very.
They just look
blah.
like regenerators
They don't
that were
have.
colored.
Yeah, they don't have the charm the Licker had, or the Hunter had, or the first zombie had. But I guess this question you ask, what do I think they're going to do? What do they have to do? It's tough. It's really tough because the movies they're making now are making them money, but at the same time, the majority of the fans don't like them, and they cannot seriously keep this going. It's they got to reboot it. So what? I told you guys what I would want to see. What I think would be perfect is a smaller setting. 10 Cloverfield might be too small, but then you take movies like Dawn of the Dead in 2004, or you take movies like The Mist, and you have a great sort of idea that I would like, but I don't know if that's what they would want to do.
Well,
they might take a DayZ approach, which would be shit if they went just huge, massive scale. I wouldn't want to see that either. And then they could take a 7 approach, which is a much more secluded sort of Texas Chainsaw vibe, which I don't know. It's just too hard of a. I honestly, I can't.
I was gonna say,
what I think
keep in
they're
mind
gonna do.
too that like what you want to see, what you feel is going to happen, and what you think they want are probably completely different. And that's that's what I'm saying. And I sympathize with the hardness of the question, because what I want to see is like what you want to see. I want to see all new characters, and I want to see that setting. What I feel is going to happen is they're just going to retell the games, because that's the safest way to spread that over 6 films. What I think that they want to do is I think that they want to respark the initial stories again. And respark that to get you worried, like to get you interested in the context of the remake 2, the remake 3 that they're going to be piling out here. I think that's hopefully I think that's what they're going to do. I don't know. But I think me and you are in agreement with that. I think that the best logical thing for them to do is not bring our characters, maybe include Easter eggs, make new ones. I agree with that. I definitely agree with that.
Much smaller story in the same universe.
But do you think, and what the Anthony wanted to know was, do you think it's going to be horror or more action?
I would hope horror, just for the producer that they brought on. That's kind of what I want, and that's kind of what I think they're going to do. I mean, I don't think they're going to make the same movies they've already made with all the action. I think they're going to take a more horror approach, but at the same time, then they have to understand that there's not going to be as much money in that. So it's tough. Well, I don't know. I can tell you what I want and what I think, but I can't tell you what they're actually going to do. I couldn't. Too tough of a question. We'll have to wait and see until we get a little.
Yeah, and I think another thing interesting to note, not to delay Anthony's response, but I think another interesting thing to note is, so let's say we have action. We all know what that's going to entail, right? It's going to entail jump scares, jump scenes, stuff like that. That kind of stuff is going to be good for an action movie. Now, let's say horror. Let's look at horror, because that's what we all kind of miss in Resident Evil when it was about horror. In a movie setting where you are introduced to these characters, and I think this is a video game syndrome, who don't die. And it's hard to retell a horror story or tell a horror story where there's no threat. And what I mean by that is, if they bring back our characters, we know they're not going to kill them off. And if they do, people are going to be pissed. So they're not going to do that. Capcom's not going to do that. Just like they didn't kill off, Superman and Batman versus Superman. They quote unquote killed him off, but like apparently he's coming back or some shit or whatever. I didn't see the whole movie, so I don't know. But they never truly kill off their characters. And I don't think they would do that in the movies either. Obviously, the live action movies, they fucking killed off Barry while he was smoking his blunt or whatever he was. But, like, and I don't know if you guys would agree with this, but, like, think of, like, Texas Chainsaw Massacre or Scream or you know, I almost said Five Nights at Freddy's. Oh, my God, I'm tired. I meant Nightmare on Elm Street, which is basically Five Nights at Freddy's just without animatronics. And all these other movies, Michael Myers and stuff like that, where they kind of like you're introduced to a cast, very serious trope. They get cut off one at a time, and it's that setting. No matter what way you look at it, in my opinion, doesn't fit a Resident Evil game or a Resident Evil movie. And in order to fit the movie and the game together, like to bring that correlation together to not only improve relations with new fans and to improve relationships with old fans, I think that setting is doomed from the start because that's never been what Resident Evil's been like. It's always been thriller instead of horror. And I know I'm not movie centric. I don't know what the difference between those two terms is, but Resident Evil has always been more mystery suspense than horror and death. Mystery. And
I agree.
I don't know, like maybe them taking a detective approach is the best.
Like I said earlier, with the detective leading up to finding out Chief Irons is corrupt and then the outbreak in Raccoon. But we already know that story, so it's not going to be too much of a mystery.
But it would be, exactly. So they're kind of put themselves in a corner. They can't do mystery.
Horror, action, or suspense. It's probably going to be
and the fact that they even classify the Resident Evil movies as horror is I mean, I guess it technically fits the genre. Well, you guys are Alien fans. At least I know Anthony is. Alien to me has always been sci-fi horror. It's always been like that type of horror where there's a looming threat instead of it just killing your characters off one at a time, which I mean it still does technically, like Predator does that as well. But instead of doing that, there's an overlaying threat, which is kind of like the T-virus is this overlying threat that is unstoppable. It's an unstoppable force basically, and you don't know how to fight it. I think that type of horror could suit well for a Raccoon City environment.
Yeah,
but
that would.
When I think horror, and it might be because I'm poisoned by today's standards, by like post 2000, because I haven't seen a lot of the older stuff. When I think horror, I think of a single person who they can't stop, who kills them off one at a time. Now I know that's probably Anthony's probably gripping his chest right now. And like fucking, oh my god. But when I think of horror, that's the way I think of it. And Anthony, you're probably in the minority for horror films because a lot of the people that live today and watch movies today probably think the same way I do when they hear the word horror. So in that perspective, from if they try to do a horror movie like that, I would take live action every single time.
Yeah.
But
I don't know.
I don't know. It would be it's like you said, JJ, it's just such a hard question because like
it is. We have to get more info on this first. It's tough.
Because like
that's why I wanted to ask it because it's something that I think that you have to have both.
Yeah. I think turning zombie has to be in the movie. No.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Has to
the
be.
First zombie has to be.
Turning zombie? Yeah, I know a lot of people say Resident Evil needs zombies, but even the first game wasn't really about zombies. It was about the BOWs, so
yeah,
they could get away with
technically the
But if they were going to follow
technically
what you were saying,
the zombies are BOWs. They're weaponized. But even if it's not a zombie or if it's something else, like the turning zombie is referenced in Resident Evil 4 when the first Spaniard. Well, I can't think of their names when I want to. What's their names? Not El Gato. That's a cat. Ganados. There we go. Yes. When he turns around for the first time, that's a reference to the turning zombie. I just want something like that. When you're first introduced to the threat, this is actually really old school, but the turning Cerberus. That's old school right there. When you're first introduced to the threat, I want to see somebody die.
I think it's on terms of the reason why I would like to see it, kind of the mixture of both, but it's going to eventually be action regardless of what we say, is because of audience's attention span. Like nobody cares anymore. Every time someone's watching a movie, they're on their phone. They're immediately bored, or they're tweeting that they're watching a movie, or they're on Instagram. It's like, you're not watching the fucking movie, you're on your fucking phone. Watch the movie. So
Sad,
they have to keep people entertained, and the way they're going to do that is they're going to make it action oriented. So I can rest assured, I'm going to confirm it right now. Mark my words, they're going to make it more action oriented, and that's fine, because again, everybody's on their phone, they're gizmo, they're all happy, and they're distracted. That's what it is. People don't even look up when they walk anymore, so let alone when a movie's up, they're not going to pay attention. So you got to keep people entertained. When people go see a horror movie, that's why they have so many fucking jump scares, because you got people on the edge of the seat, so they're just anticipating the next jump scare. And the people that actually give a shit appreciate psychological horror, or they like, stuff that actually smart and some kind of technique in writing, or some kind of atmosphere to it that's different. And that's the main term, different. Making this something different than what we've seen before is major to what we're going to be, anticipating for the next 6 films, if it gets that far, hopefully, and if it's good enough. So I agree with what both you guys are saying. I think it needs to have that, it's going to have that action. I do think it needs to have some horror elements, but it's going to be action. So would I like to see an all-out horror film? No, I don't think that would work for Resident Evil.
Yeah.
Like you both mentioned, I don't think that it would, would work, because that's not what Resident Evil always was. It was survival horror, but really, there was always something else going on, lingering behind there, puzzle solving, mystery, thinking, suspense. As versus, and it's cheesy. It's got to be cheesy. It needs to be cheesy horror with action, and there's several movies that I love that are like that.
And somebody's phone, when it rings in the movie, has to play the theme from Director's Cut when you go into the back room.
Oh, as an Easter egg?
Yeah, as an Easter egg. Like the 1, you know what I'm talking about, Anthony.
Oh yeah, the fucking crazy
one.
Yeah.
I think
that'd be amazing.
I agree with Anthony there. I think that the true horror won't work. But another thing, and this is just me, but I just don't like real actors. I have a problem with them, and I already can tell no matter which way they go. I'm kind of bummed out now. I just bummed myself out a little bit, because no matter what way they go with this live action movie, I guarantee you I'm not going to like it. And the reason why is because I have a hard time believing or leaning into real actors and the way they're portrayed on the screen. And it's just a disconnect with me. There's very few real acting movies, live action movies, that I can really get behind.
I don't know. We were just talking about how good John Goodman was.
Well, that's true. But like when you guys were talking about that, if you remember, I didn't say anything.
Yeah, that's true. You didn't see it.
Because not only that, but like John Goodman, I mean, this goes back to my whole live action thing, but I remember him from Roseanne. That's like where I remember him from, and I haven't seen him in a lot of other. Obviously I know his voices, and I love his voices that he does for animated films. They're wonderful. But it goes back to the point where, like, if it's action, we already got that, and it didn't work. If it's horror, it doesn't work because Resident Evil's not set up like that. If it's a mix, that's all cool, and I like that. But part of me wishes that they would just let this die.
Oh.
And then when they if they would just let the live actions die and just continue the CG movies, because I just feel like a story can be told better through animation. To me.
Okay.
To me personally, that's how I feel. I know that's not how Anthony feels, because he loves live action movies a lot, like classic horror and stuff like that. And I see the appeal. I'm not saying they're bad at all. I'm just saying for me personally, there's a disconnect. And I'm sure there's others out there, you may be even listening to this right now, who feel the same way, that animation just captures it. There's a whole lot more you can do. It's hard to replicate flying in live action. It's hard to and like make it believable. It's sometimes like when you have a stern face and you're stone-faced in a live action movie, I find it humorous. I am one of the people who laughs at Titanic. I can't take that movie seriously. I know that it's sad, and I understand that, but I cried when Pikachu left Ash. I do not cry at any point in that movie. You
just have different tastes.
Yeah, it's just different tastes. I'm not saying anybody that has tastes different than me is wrong.
Yeah.
The last live action movie that made me cry, I think, was Click.
Oh my god.
Adam Sandler?
Adam Sandler, which is completely, you would think is completely the
That
opposite.
movie is not a comedy.
It is not a comedy.
That's not a
no,
funny
that movie is really
that
sad.
movie is so fucking sad. Like when he sees his dad and he like blows his dad off, and it's like that's so fucking
That's deep.
That was the last movie that made me cry that had real actors in it, I think.
Yeah.
Like chronologically, there's probably other movies since then that have made me cry, but that like came out earlier. Animation wise, though, animation wise, I just got done crying. What was it? What was the movie I watched?
After watching Roseanne.
Yeah, after watching Roseanne.
You just hate Roseanne, you bastard.
I love Roseanne.
Just admit it. Just watch a cartoon.
Grave of the Fireflies.
Yeah.
Studio Ghibli.
Heard of it.
I
was gonna say a lot of people are very emotionally moved by Studio Ghibli movies.
I watched that. I cried during that. I didn't cry during all of them, but I cried during that one. I also cried during Finding Dory, which
I haven't seen that.
either.
I'm not too interested.
Yeah.
I think that it's one of my favorite animation movies of all time. It's top 10. Finding Nemo and Dory are both. I don't know. I have a sweet spot for them, and I don't know why. Maybe it's because I've seen Finding Nemo over 5,000 times by now, but and there's just a disconnect for me with live action. I never feel believable, because when you have an animated character, I think it goes down to when you have an animated character, that character is designed to retell that story. When you have an actor, I know The Rock is eating crimpets backstage before he goes out and acts. I don't feel connected to the character because I know that that's Dwayne Johnson, or I know that's Vin Diesel, or I know that's fucking Mila. Okay, like that's how I think that's me. That's how I feel it. And I think that's why I have that disconnect with my movies so much.
Could be.
There's one actor, I will tell you, there's one actor who, no matter what he's in, almost no matter what he's in, I can comfortably go into a movie and watch it.
Will Smith.
It's Will Smith.
Yeah. Really?
Yep.
He's a good actor. I like Will Smith.
It's Will Smith. He
very
is
likable.
He is no matter what he's in, because he is the.
Besides I Am Legend.
I Am Legend is kind of.
I Am Legend.
I
liked it.
I liked I Am Legend. It was kind of, the storytelling was kind of stupid, but I still liked it. The same thing with what's that, After Earth? I think it's what it's called. That movie was kind of stupid too, but.
Yeah, with his dumbass
Will
song.
Smith.
Get the fuck out
Will
of here.
Smith.
Oh yeah, his real son. Okay. I know what
Yeah.
you're talking about.
Will Smith has such a way of captivating the emotions and becoming the character he plays.
Yeah.
Uncle Phil.
I guess kind of like John Goodman for you guys.
Well, that was just an example of somebody who got into the role and actually did, a really well job. But there's a lot of actors that can do that to me.
Yeah. And I just think that's it. So without getting too much further into that discussion, I feel like if they're going to tell the games again. I would rather them do it in animation. But if they're gonna make movies live action, I kind of feel like no matter what they do, I don't want to say let down because that's a little harsh, but I feel like I'm not going to enjoy it as much as I could.
Okay.
Sure.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Not to mention, weren't they doing a Netflix series?
That was a rumor.
That
was
a rumor. Arkley and
Okay.
Yeah, Arklay was a while back, but there was another rumor recently,
Yeah.
and I mean, that's like, in my opinion, that's where Resident Evil would be perfect because of lower budget. They can get away with a lot more on Netflix. They could still tell a better story over time. That would be the best place for Resident Evil.
That's what I was just thinking too. I think Resident Evil would do better as a seasonal.
Yeah,
like a Walking
or even
Dead.
Just one season,
or even just one season. I don't know, but that's just the way that I feel. Like I feel like if they don't cast the characters perfectly, and they're not believable to me, like 9 out of 10 times in a horror movie, I don't feel the fear because I can't get over the characters that just make me laugh. Like.
It depends on what you consider horror, though, as well.
It depends what you watch.
Yeah.
There's definitely horror movies that I could show you and sometime where you'd be like, holy shit, that was intense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Horror to me is more eerie and uncomfortable feeling.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of people would say horror would be something, you know, I don't know, just take a newer movie, for example, and like, okay, take the ones that come out every year. What are they called?
Paranormal Activity.
Yeah, like I can see where there's some elements of horror, but a lot of people would say it's horror, where I would say like The Witch is more horror, where it gives you a very eerie, uncomfortable feeling. Like, I don't know.
Something I liked that not a lot of people talk about, and it didn't get great reviews, but again, never look at reviews because the industry doesn't like horror.
Yeah.
The industry doesn't like horror.
The
men in suit and ties don't like horror. They don't like
because
horror.
that's why
they don't like. They don't like heavy metal either. Horror is looked at like heavy metal music or metal music. It's cast aside. It's the outcast. It's different. Nobody likes it. That's how it always has been, and it's like it's never invited to the party. Even at the Grammys, when Metallica played, the girl's like, hey, this is Lady Gaga and some guys with guitars. It's like, really?
You don't know who the fuck Metallica is? Yeah.
It's like so again, it goes back to my point. So the reviews don't the views never matter. It's always kind of like, you know, shunned away.
Yeah.
So one movie that I always liked was The Strangers. And the reason why I like that movie is it's a home invasion movie. But and of course it's like at the beginning it's like this is a true story, but it's not a true story. But obviously there's similar things like that happen. But the whole idea of why I think that movie is scary and it's not funny
is realistic
is because it could happen.
Yeah.
They're not teleporting. Well, they kind of do at some scenes, but they're not like, it's not some supernatural thing. It's realistic. It's just a couple in a home in the middle of nowhere. Someone knocks on the door and they ask if someone's home who doesn't even live there, and they just terrorize the shit out of this couple and fuck with them. They don't even kill them. They fuck with them because they were home.
Yeah.
That's their motive. And that's scary.
Yeah.
Because it can happen to anyone. Like break-ins happen, murders happen, it happens. And just in American crime history, like it just happens. And so around the world it happens. So I think certain things like that, it's very eerie, it's creepy. Even the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it's gritty, it's dirty. It was filmed literally in 100-something degrees weather in Texas. Like, you feel that horror, you know, like all the bones and animal bones, those are all real bones that they found, you know, all the rotting meat that was just sitting on the fucking dinner table scene while they were shooting day in day out while the sun was like, you could feel that, like, that struggle that those actors went through. So it really depends on what you go through making it, but it also depends on, you know, who's making it and the vision that they have. And now with the Resident Evil movies, like I said, it's a different, like, more cheesy kind of approach. So something like that will never happen. but there are horror movies that make it work. I don't think it would work with Resident Evil.
But there's not a lot of money to be made, and
there's not a lot of money to be made. Yeah.
Unfortunately, like you said, Anthony, how you think it's going to go action, that's most likely what it's going to, it's just going to be a reboot of the movie franchise we have out now. They can't continue that. So, but there's always a chance it will be better. So we just have to really wait and see. So it's exciting news. Unfortunately, it might turn out like that.
What's that movie? Don't Breathe.
Yeah,
is that the movie? Yeah, that's a movie that I've seen recently that was live action that I actually enjoyed. I thought that movie was good.
Yeah, that wasn't
What was
bad.
the other movie? There was another video game movie I saw that I actually enjoyed that a lot of people didn't like. What was it?
Prince of Persia.
No, Prince of Persia was...
Silent Hill?
Yes, Silent Hill.
Really?
Yes, that was it.
Yeah. It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad.
I watched Silent Hill, the 2006 one. I don't know if there's any more.
There's a second one.
There's two more, right?
Yeah, I watched the Silent Hill. I actually thought...
Or one more. I don't know.
That movie, from beginning to middle to end, was one of the few movies, live-action movies, in recent time that I could not get my eyes away from. I watched the whole thing.
I gotta watch it again.
And
forever.
A lot of Silent Hill fans would say different or otherwise.
Oh, I've heard from Dustin.
Just like how Resident Evil fans would say the same thing with the movies, if they're not like into the games as much, but then the people like it. So I haven't seen it in a while. I would have to go back and watch to make an opinion. I saw it when I was younger. I saw it in bits. So
same here.
I heard Revelations 3D was pretty shit though. I heard, but the first one, was still more traditional horror.
Yes, definitely.
Or from what I've seen.
And then what other video game movies were there? Oh God, I just remembered Doom.
Doom, Need for Speed. Now I'm blanking now that I'm thinking about it, but there's a ton and they all fail.
Assassin's Creed,
Hitman,
Max Payne.
Hitman, tried it twice, garbage both times.
Super Mario Bros.
Max Payne. It don't work. Well, it can work. It's just not done right. And why I'm saying that is because every time they make a video game into a movie, it's super high budget. It's always it just always flops.
There is one video game movie that okay, there's two parts to this. There's one video game movie that I believe was the best video game based movie that was ever made. And a lot of people liked it even if they never played the game. And that is, I really am impressed with what they did with Warcraft.
It wasn't bad.
Warcraft was a very solid video game movie. Now, fantasy movie in terms of like Lord of the Rings and stuff like that, it felt...
I know why you like that,
fell
though,
short.
because that was mostly CGI.
It was mostly CGI.
Yeah, it really was. It felt more like a cartoon than
It was more CGI. But two, the one video game franchise that I feel with the most potential to be made into a very strong live action movie, if there was to ever going to be one, there's two that come to my mind. They already did Tomb Raider and it failed, but
they're doing it again.
Yeah, they're doing it again, but there's two that I think of when I think of it, and that is, they could do a movie, and I've never played the franchise, so I'm not entirely sure what happens, but because there's been a drought in this kind of movie, they could do an Uncharted series.
They are.
They are doing an Uncharted series? Okay.
Yeah, the guy who's Spider-Man, Tom Holland.
Okay.
He's actually going to play young Drake
in the
new Uncharted movie.
Okay, that's cool.
That's confirmed.
And with that being said, I also think that The Last of Us could be made into a movie.
They said they were going to do that as well. That's just in talks.
I think
it's going to float around.
It is going to float around forever.
It's such a good game, though. Does it really need to be a movie unless you're making it in the same universe?
It doesn't need to be a movie.
I cry every time I play that game.
Definitely.
Every single time.
Every
cutscene.
Every single time Sarah gets shot.
Hold on. I haven't beat it yet.
No, that's the beginning.
Oh, yeah, okay. It's crazy.
You haven't beat
No,
it yet?
I have
What
not.
are you
No, I have not.
doing?
It's good, and I played it when it came out, and it was good. And I just didn't get far because I didn't have a PS3. Then I bought it for my
I got a
PS4,
PS4.
and I had it
Yes.
like a couple days to play it, and I only ended up playing one day, and I got really
Excuses.
far, and then I hit a hill, like a dead end, and excuses.
Yeah, excuses.
I need to play the game. I have it right now. I will eventually play it.
You
I'll probably,
have to finish that up.
I'll probably play it
before
on my
gets spoiled
channel.
for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm surprised it hasn't been yet.
The other one, which is going to surprise some people, is I really think that they could do and get away with
Crash Bandicoot.
Yeah.
a Legend of Zelda movie. And
I'm
the
sure.
reason why I say that is because think of who would do it. In that situation,
Zelda's out of my
yeah,
anything Nintendo.
I was gonna say,
I completely
in that
just- I'm out
situation,
of it.
I would love to see Nintendo hand Disney the creative rights to a Legend of Zelda movie.
I feel like they could do that if they worked out some kind of partnership.
Disney would be perfect for
Yeah,
it.
Disney would be perfect for it. But I don't know. So, do I have hopes for the Resident Evil movies? I do. Do I have doubts? I certainly do.
I think we all
Yeah.
share that. I think we all
Yeah.
have some doubts, we have some stuff, but we did cover a lot of good things here in 2.5 hours. So it was definitely a stacked show. But before we go, since we did, if any of you guys want to say anything else about that, we could start plugging away. If you guys want to plug some of your stuff that you do, some of your channels.
Hell yeah. Okay. No, I pretty much said all I wanted to say. I do want to say again, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, it was great.
It was a
we
good
actually
time.
had a balanced. We had it structured, and I like this Google Docs thing. So
Yeah, that
we'll be
worked
using that
a
from now on.
lot. So a lot of fun,
Yeah.
a lot of stuff we covered here. I guess I'll plug my channel. I'm JJ. You guys might know me, but I'm from the Residents of Evil. If you don't, I have a YouTube channel where I make videos about Resident Evil. You can follow Residents of Evil at ROE Network on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Instagram. And next week, I'll actually be chatting with Erin Cahill. She's the voice actress of Rebecca Chambers in the upcoming Resident Evil Vendetta movie. So I'm looking forward to that, but that's going to be on the next.
Nice, man. Congrats on that.
Yeah, it's exciting. Thank you. That's going to be on the next Residents of Evil podcast we do over at Residents of Evil on YouTube. So stay tuned for that. Residents of Evil podcast episode 3 shall be on. That's all I got. Yeah. Thanks.
Final closing thought on the movie franchise would be, it would be interesting to see if they do retell the story of the games. It would be interesting to see Lisa Trevor
Oh yeah.
That would be cool.
being the kind of, I mean, they could do a whole Trevor family movie. It would be interesting to see that transformation and all of that. I'm pretty sure we're all in agreement. We don't want to see Alex Wesker, right?
No.
Yeah, we don't. No Alex Wesker. No Alex Wesker. Let's stick with Lisa Trevor because she's the one that did the candles and stuff right the first time. But yeah, with that being said, I'm on Anthony's channel a lot. I am the Hero Guy John. I have a YouTube and a Twitter. My Twitter is at Hero Guy John, and my YouTube channel will be in the description if you want to check me out. I do Resident Evil, Final Fantasy RPGs in general. Pretty new channel. I've only been really uploading for about 2.5 weeks now. So, lots of fun content to come, and lots of collabs to come too. That's pretty much it for me. It's always a pleasure to be on, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, man, and you guys will be on as well as Richard on the next episode of the podcast. We'll be talking about Resident Evil 2 remake, and anticipating that, some stuff we want to see. We'll be taking some of your questions, so stay tuned for that stuff. You can follow the Let's Talk Resident Evil Facebook page. That's facebook.com/Let's Talk Resident Evil. We are also on iTunes. Let's Talk Resident Evil on iTunes. We are on Google Play. Let's Talk Resident Evil. We are also on Libsyn. Libsyn.com/Let's Talk RE. All the links will be down there. You can download the episodes, listen to them on the go, listen to them while you're out and about, and you could easily access everything that I'm doing on my Twitter at JillSandwich988. I'm also going to be doing something that I'm going to be plugging away at pretty soon. So stay tuned for some videos, updates and whatnot, collection updates, and a video as well. Specifically, I'll have some more details. So I can't say everything here yet until I do the video for it. But you guys will just, you'll see it after this podcast, if anything, or right before it actually. So you actually might already see it. But yeah, check all that stuff out. Like I said, go over and like the page so you know what's going on. Follow me so you know when I'm streaming with John or when I'm streaming by myself. Or even, if I start streaming with JJ, which would be pretty cool, because he does lots of streams. So anytime we're all streaming, we usually tweet it out. So just remember to follow us on there. Other than that, that's about it. So I want to thank you guys for both coming on. It was a great chat and discussion. And other than that, that's it. So until next time, guys.
See ya.